Kickoff week 2 with a slobber knocker.
He can play so aggressive.
He can go for 2. He went for 2. Well, that was not good as Paddington just deletes someone.
Pulls the feathers ball. Upset, you beauty. He gets almost sniped down. Finn with the rupture. Not going to do it just yet. One more breath. First blood, Finn.
Counts to take it. He gets 1. He gets 2, and he's looking for more. Perks on the chase takes another. And G2 will wipe that Lions in the river.
Thrown in. That's the flash. That's the bellows. The burn through. Reckless gets a double. He's looking at SK for more. The Baron has been illicit tactic. That's a triple. Quadras on the cards. It's stolen by Scumbag Self-Made. But the Baron is gift wrapped for Fnatic.
LCS starts right now.
Ignite drop down, nicely done. Guardian Angel coming out there, but double him. Wham, bam, that's the shot you need. Quick going in, he's able to find the Cataclysm. 1-3, damage going through, just shut down. Oh my goodness gracious! It's a double kill for Johnson. Nexus turret's under fire. Poor JJ and Doublets looking to stop him. Damage coming through. Dignitas members, they've targeted the Nexus. They'll take it down. The stopwatch might be able to do it. Meteos, he goes too early. Dinner is served. It is tragedy, and no other word can apply for CLG fans right there. Looks like the dive could be the choice here. Ulti coming out from the Kale onto Wiggly. He wants to dive through, find the execution on the someday. But this is how Sen outplays. You do not respect the haymaker, you get smacked.
Ooh, that someday play still gets me the 1v2. Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of Rift Rewind, where every single week we are going to be breaking down some of the biggest plays and telling you why your favorite team is probably trash. I'm your host, Avalie May, and today I'm joined by my big-brained buddies. We have Emily Rand here, Jacob Wolf, Tyler Erzberger, and Darren Kwilinski. Guys, are you super... okay, listen, you can tell. I'm excited. Are you excited for today?
Yeah, let's go.
We get the energy. We get the energy in the room. I mean, we have had quite a week, and for everyone who's watching, these are not our only guests. We will also be joined by the wonderful Froskurinn, caster and analyst of the LEC, and she'll be joining us for the LEC portion of today's show. But, you know, before we get to the lesser regions, let's go ahead and talk about LCS.
Yes.
I mean, like, listen, you throw me on here, I'm going to come in. But actually, for everyone who's watching at home, you can participate along in the stream. I'm here in the Twitch chat, so go ahead, pop your names. I see Zej is in here. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be reading the chat. If you guys have any questions that you want to hear us discuss, let us know. You can also drop your questions on our Twitter page at ESPN Esports, and we'll be looking through those as well. But okay, let's talk about LCS now, because we had undefeated teams. We had Dignitas. It's like, okay, well, are they going to be able to keep it up? FlyQuest as well, trying to plant these forests. And then, you know, some teams still struggling to find their first wins. Let's go ahead and take a look at the standings while you guys just tell me, what were your biggest takeaways? Look, we have Cloud9 right at the top, 4-0 after week 2.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way C9 has playing, and I've been playing, and I think there's a definite gap between them and the rest of the region right now. I know, unfortunately, Team Liquid, they still don't have Broxa, so I still think their understanding of the game is super strong, but obviously that's going to affect the way that they play, and I think, you know, C9 is definitely the undisputed best LCS team right now.
Yeah, I mean, Liquid is the one that shocks me the most, I think, from all of this, right? Like, not having their starting jungler does put them in a pretty big predisposition, but I don't think Shermfire is so bad that he should be blamed for all of these issues. I think that he's more than serviceable at this point. And it just seems like they're very disjointed, which is a little surprising considering how dominant they were last year.
Yeah, definitely trying to do the best with what they can. But let's go ahead and take a look at our bottom 5 teams. Counter Logic Gaming. This was actually a surprise
Take back
to me.
everything I said.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
It's only 3 games, Jacob. Calm down.
They have their
play
match
tonight.
today against TSM. We're going to see how that turns out. But still, we see them at the bottom. We see EG at the bottom, as well as Golden Guardians with that 1-3 record, I believe.
Yeah, it's not a great time if you're a Golden Guardians fan. They're very entertaining. I feel like if you're going to watch one LCS game besides Cloud9 right now, you want to watch Golden Guardians because you never know what Keith's going to do. You never know. I love Keith.
Is he going to go in? Is he going to go in and die?
No.
Yes, probably.
Yes, he is.
Okay. If you are a player and your team comes up to you and says, hey, would you rather be an academy player at your natural role, or would you rather be a starter in the LCS in a new role you've never played before? You're going to take the LCS role.
Yes, of course.
So Keith takes the LCS role. They send him to Korea, say, hey, go learn support. And this is what you get.
You give him too much credit, Tyler.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on now.
I'm
I think maybe I started it by throwing shade, but this is still only week 2 of the LCS. Everyone's kind of getting in the groove of things. We've had teams like Immortals. They had 2 days of practice before week 1. Yeah. So everyone is still slowly getting into the groove, learning about building up the synergies and everything. So I would like to give a little bit more leeway to some of these players. Would you say, is that fair to say?
I'd give the benefit of the doubt to EG.
It depends on the player. Someone like Keith, I bought a lot of Keith stock back when he first got on Liquid many years ago, and I've been very sorely disappointed, so I've cashed out. I shorted that stock.
That's Keith AD. That's Keith AD, though. You were talking about
Yeah, but he was
support.
bad as an AD. He's now bad as a support. So
Well, okay, let's keep the focus on Golden Guardians. What do you think about Golden Glue in the mid lane stepping up?
Yeah, I think that this season is really his opportunity to shine. Look, the team is clearly one of the worst teams in the league from a competitive perspective. I think he's been serviceable. He's the one NA mid in the league. He had the opportunity to really show something for a region that really needs it from a domestic talent perspective. But for him, I said this on the free agency show when we reported that he got signed, but really, this is his last shot, in my opinion, to make it seem that he fits in the LCS. And it's not he's not the problem here.
No, and we've heard him say on broadcast in an interview, he said that he feels like he is now shouldering the weight of all NA mid laners because he's the only remaining NA mid lane talent when there's so many imports in that mid lane. And so now he's saying well, if I don't do a good job here, my friends may not have jobs in the future. So that's got to be an enormous amount of pressure.
Yeah, of course. I feel he's been serviceable, but I think the real star of Golden Guardians, I think a lot of us can agree here, is Closer. At Worlds last year, I interviewed Closer. He was ready to make a jump to the big leagues, go to a major league, go to EU, go to NA. He was very ready to go, and he's come in and he's shown no fear, and I love that. Rookies, a lot of times, especially coming in as a jungler, you have a little bit of hesitancy. You don't want to make that mistake, right? You don't want to look dumb. He doesn't care about looking dumb. And on a team like Golden Guardians where they're experimenting, I don't think this is going to be the starting 5 we see probably in a few weeks. They're trying to figure out the right pieces to carry forward, and Closer is a superstar in the making. I really like Closer, and I think him and Golden Glue have a good connection. I think those two are the players you would want to build around on Golden Guardians.
I wish he was eligible. I wish Closer was eligible for the Rookie of the Split award. He is not because of the way that Riot delineates on the events.
He wouldn't have won anyway. He would not have won.
I don't know.
There's only one true AD. There's only one true rookie.
Okay.
Only one.
We understand who bought all the Johnson stock here. You didn't even know his name a few weeks ago, but no, it's
Wow.
okay.
All right. Well,
Got real cold in here.
why don't we jump into that then? Let's talk about the match of the week, because the match of the week was Team Liquid versus Dignitas. Dignitas coming into this matchup, undefeated, an incredibly strong showing, especially off of the back of Froskurinn. And then Liquid still kind of trying to pick up the pieces, still missing their key jungler there. So, just to start this game, it actually looked kind of close. TL was, Emily, I think you said this best, they were having pretty strong control over those side lanes, and then somehow Dignitas managed to take this game.
Well, there was this in the bot lane.
There was this game.
Or in the top lane.
I didn't think they were going to show it this early. Do you want to run through that?
Well, yeah, I think the cool thing about this game is that they had I think Dignitas got the jump on them with the lane swap, and then TL was not expecting that. However, when TL did control the game, they had a really good look at side lanes, and then they pushed too far in that top lane. And when you enter a large-scale team fight with Dignitas's comp, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a nice move. Like, they realm warped from one inhibitor to the next.
But imagine they had that realm warp to escape.
Right? I mean, I totally get that. And I don't fault them for trying to make that move, though. I think that, you know, if you're going to try to put something away and throw that haymaker, why not go for it? It obviously ended up not working. But props to them for at least making a move.
No, we blame them. How dare they? How dare they go
More shade?
Always shade here, but I want to let Tyler talk here because I know you're excited. You really want to talk about Johnson. He's the only rookie of the split, as by definition, and he is completely outperforming everyone's expectations.
Jacob, how many rookies are in the EU this split? Like 13, 14?
It's like half the
That's a
league.
lot.
Yeah,
It's pretty nuts.
so you have 15 European rookies, you have one Johnson. I'm going to take the Johnson every day of the week. Johnson is the one true AD carry of North America. 3 games, 3 different champions, composure, like a veteran. He has ice in his veins. You saw him versus Doublelift. He wasn't afraid. I talked to Johnson in an interview after one of his first wins. No fear. Usually when you talk to a rookie, they stutter over their words. They give very short answers. They don't have a lot of confidence in themselves. Johnson was excited to play Doublelift. He thought he could beat Doublelift. He was like, he has a bolt cut, I have a bolt cut. My bolt cut will beat his. He was that confident. That's the confidence. But that's the thing. When you have a rookie who can make a joke like that, you're like, oh wow, this guy actually has this composure. And I really like that. When you can joke around like that and not fear, you know, playing Doublelift, who's won almost every single split the last 3 years, and he's just like, I'm gonna go beat that guy. This guy has 4 counts in Challenger last year. The guy's mechanically talented. He's with Aframu, who's taught many young AD carries how to make finals. 2016, Cody Sutton, final. Or 2016 6A final. 2018 6A final. 2020 spring, Johnson. It's the prophecy, man. Dignitas is going in the final.
The fun part about, the fun part about him is like when he first got picked up, right? He was bought out by Cloud9 to be a part of this deal for Vulcan, and ultimately we reported this today as $1.75 million approximate value for Vulcan, which was $250,000 paid to TSM for Johnson to be traded, and then a $1.5 million paid just flat to Dignitas. And when I first was hearing what this deal would look like, somebody was like, "Oh, they're just throwing in this random academy player." And so I started poking. And I finally found it was Johnson, and everyone I talked to that was in academy, I was like, "What? Why does this guy demand $1.5 million or $1.5 million in his $250,000 buyout? What it makes him so special?" And everybody's like, "This guy's a killer. He didn't really play a lot with TSM Academy, but they're like every time he did." He looked good, and then also when he was playing in scrims, more than the sample size that we had professionally, everybody was super high on him, and clearly paying off now.
Yeah, so I do want to touch a little bit more on your article later on, because we do have a discussion topic about Cloud9, but something that I want to tag on to Tyler. Emily, I believe you sat down and spoke with Aframu to talk a little bit about this bot lane, and like Tyler said, Aframu, so many rookie AD carries that he has cultivated and just raised up into the final. So how big of a role do you think he's playing in Johnson's growth on this team?
I think he's playing a pretty big role. They seem to have a really good relationship. He praised Johnson a lot for coming to him with these are the intricacies of so-and-so champions, and here's how I want to play it, and here's how we should play it together. And I think having that kind of symbiotic relationship as a duo lane is really good. And then what Afro brings is just a lot of experience, a lot of veteran leadership. Like Johnson said, when talking about Afro, he's like, if I do really bad, he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I know you'll play better in the next game. And they seem to be very chill. They seem to get along really well, and they seem to be able to contribute a lot of information between each other. I know another thing I wanted to praise Johnson about specifically is I think his decision making in team fights is really, really good, and that's all on him. I'm talking about stuff like skill order and stuff like that. So we don't always see that out of NA rookies, and I think that's really, really impressive to see. And Afro paired with an AD carry like that, they should be able to become one of the best bot lanes, I think, in the league by the end of spring.
The funny thing is, they came very close to getting sneaky once upon a time in the off season, and it was basically just came down to dollar amounts couldn't be agreed upon between Sneaky Sagent and Dignitas. And like the shocking thing about that is like honestly, Johnson's ended up in the best environment he could probably be in. He's got veterans. He has one of the highest paid players in Huni on his team. So like if anybody's going to criticize anyone on Dignitas later in the season, it's Huni that's going to get it. And so like the pressure's off for him, it feels like, right? But he's on a team full of veterans and people who are drawing more attention than he is, and he's sort of just sliding through stealthily through the league right now and playing quite well. So I like. I think it kind of worked out in the end, not being able to get sneaky and for Dignitas.
Yeah, definitely. Now, while we are still on the topic of rookies, we actually have our first chat question. This is a question from Rebby. Yeah, so Rebby, thank you for the question. How many of those LEC rookies are going to be in the LCS next split?
Do we want to start making prop bets on which ones they are? Because I mean, I look at Shadow, and I think
it's
somebody who could instantly.
Shadow.
And over Mad Lions.
People follow
as many Mad Lions players as
work.
possible.
But let's just maybe choose your top prospects, just because we're going to talk about LEC later. Just who's the one that you think would make it over? Shadow?
I would say probably Shadow, yeah.
I would say Shadow. In a world where jungle is a very high demand position for an international prospect.
I'd have to say Shadow. I mean, Karzi is really good, but the thing is, the one thing NA can pride themselves on is we make good AD carries.
Yeah, we have double lift. We have Johnson.
We have some good AD carries out here.
Who knows? Maybe Liquid can have better luck with Shadow than Broxa. Jesus, I'm crossing my fingers. I'm crossing my fingers.
I feel bad for Schernfire because like he's being put in a really pressure-filled situation, and I feel like whenever a player is put in that kind of position, like I saw it with IG and Leon at Worlds, like if that player doesn't do well, even though they haven't been set up for success and it's not their fault, they typically bear the brunt of a lot of community criticism. So I just hope that people are, I think TL is doing a good job of trying to go for pushing lanes and making sure that Schernfire has a lot of cover and stuff like that. So hopefully people don't blame him if TL struggles.
Yeah, I want to get on to this next point, but before I do, I said this on stream about Schernfire after, I believe, their loss. And I went into mama bear mode a little bit because you have this player who's coming over with the intention of playing on Academy, playing under the best team domestically for LCS. And he's like, sweet, I get to learn under Broxa. And then all of a sudden he's told week one, hey, by the way, you're going to be playing in place of Broxa. And you're going to be playing against Cloud9, the next best team in the scene. And it's like, well, he just now has all this pressure and everyone's expecting teams to win and perform. And then...
I mean, honestly, it's a good opportunity too. So like that's the flip side, right? Like if you perform really, really well and your team does well, you suddenly look amazing.
Yeah.
And your stock goes way up. The trade-off though is that the community and other players can be really, really harsh, So if you go out and you don't perform as well, then a lot of people end up having that be their first impression of you and their lasting impression of you.
Yeah, and internet impressions, they last a long, long time.
Yeah.
But okay, I want to move on to this next point because this next point was big for me. Froskurinn, playing absolutely out of his mind for the first 2 weeks. Week one, he was the player of the week from his Ori and Victor play. Now, a lot of the conversations around him, especially during the offseason, was Froskurinn and his past lower results. Is that on him, or has he just never been able to find this good team to, maybe match up with his play style a little bit? So now that he's on Dignitas and finding this success, is this the team to finally support Froskurinn?
I mean, I think it's a good team for him because what do they want him to do on this team, right? Just kind of hold mid and play mid really, really well as a center point, so that they can then focus on side lanes. Like, Huni's TPing bot, if they call him. Like, he's coming maybe even when they don't call him. So they're not looking for Froskurinn to be this, like, super roaming mid laner. They're looking for him to do exactly what he's best at, which is really sit in lane, focus on the matchup, play those control mages, which are, kind of coming back a bit. We've seen more Orianna. And I think it's, it's a good fit for him thus far. Now, I think with Dig, we're also going to look at how they react to a loss, right? Like when they end up losing, how does this team react to a loss? But thus far, I think all of the issues that people brought up with like, can Huni and Froskurinn be on the same team? They're both going to suck all the resources out, and then poor Johnson's going to get no resources, and it's just going to be it's just going to be absolutely awful. I think that's been put to rest. This entire team, like one thing Aframu did also tell me is that the thing he was super impressed with everyone on this team is everyone's willing to sacrifice. So hopefully they can keep that up because right now this is looking like a really good fit for Froskurinn.
Now, we spent a lot of time talking about Dignitas. Let's flip it to the other side. Team Liquid. After this loss, the next day they went ahead and beat FlyQuest, ended their forest planting journey. But did this loss to Dignitas really whip them into shape to pick up that win, do you think?
Yeah, yes and no. I think TL's really in a holding pattern, right? I mean, Broxa came over from, or he hasn't even come over from here.
He hasn't,
that's the issue.
He's at home.
It's the thing. It's like they're on a holding pattern because MSI is the only thing up for spring championship. There's no points anymore, right? So
yeah, they should thank Riot for that rule.
Yeah. It's the Broxa rule, right? It's the thing of like, okay, worst case scenario, they get Broxa. They don't get Broxa. Let's say worst case scenario, he doesn't come the spring split. They miss MSI. Not the biggest, I mean, obviously they want to compete at MSI, but you're still going into summer with the World Championship hopes. It's not going to deter them from making Worlds. So really, they're in a holding pattern. I think that right now, all they're really hoping is for Surenfire to get some experience. I think, like, your Mama Bear self, you just want him to be good, but he's learning.
Mama Bear.
But he's growing, right? You want him to grow up, and it's a good thing. I think altogether is that. For TL, they can just relax. No, they're the 4-time champions, back to back to back to back. They're fine. As long as Broxa gets here with enough time to practice with the team, they'll be fine. As long as they get, sneak into that 6th place, 5th place spot, no team wants to play in the playoffs. Even Cloud9, who I think are looking incredible, no one wants to play Team Liquid with their full roster.
Yeah,
my concern though is my point is I hope that's the view you just outlined is the view that they're taking, and that they're not going to get hung on the fact that they don't have Broxa and that take these losses super hard, which is totally possible with some of the players on this team. People like Jensen and people like Doublelift, who are highly motivated individuals, and losing hurts to those guys a lot, and they've talked about it in the past. And so I hope they have that mentality of let's wait it out until we really get our whole thing assembled and put together. Because if not, this could be a really bad spring split from a motivation standpoint, and I hope that's not the position we end up in.
I mean, we're talking about them as if they've looked really bad, but they haven't. Like, they really haven't. Like,
they could be way worse.
But they have a better, they also, like, just the way they play the game, they have a better understanding of side lane pressure than almost any other NA team. Like, they could have won this Dignitas game very easily with like a minute difference in decision making. So I think the other thing to talk about is that this is still like an insane lineup, and plugging Surenfire in, like, if they're going to pull any part out, I think losing Xmithy really hurts because of a lot of intangibles. But in terms of plugging a new jungler in, as long as they continue to pick pushing lanes that they want to pick, that'll help Surenfire a lot, right? Because it just gives him way more choices, way more options in the early game. And again, they have a better understanding of side lane pressure than most NA teams. So I really think that the whole motivation thing, I do think that's a good point, because this is a team that's like highly motivated to win if you look at all of their players. But I think we still have like a really strong lineup here. Stronger than, a lot of other NA teams still, even with Surenfire jungle, which is not who they expected to be there.
So we'll basically see if Liquid has any updates for us in this upcoming week. Still wondering, where's Broxa? Latest that we've heard from their first episode of the squad was that he's helping out with coaching opportunities along with Pobelter. But Dignitas will end up seeing play again later today. But moving on, I want to open up with another chat question. We have one from Flashy Singh. Which NA team?
Hey, Flashy.
Say hi to him.
He's super frequent, and he played games with Arda and I.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Hello, Flashy.
Which NA teams have mostly surprised you with their performances?
I say CLG, actually. I expected to come out and look a lot better.
Okay, so there we go.
Yeah.
Like, is it a happy surprise?
No, it's like talking to the team. Their boot camp seemed to go well. I know Crown got in like slightly late, but they still boot camped with him. This team seemed to get along really well. They've just looked really, really flat, and it's unfortunate because I expected them to. I mean, I didn't expect them to be like super at the top of the standings, but I definitely expected them to be in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on that. I said earlier, right after the end of the offseason, that I thought CLG and 100 Thieves could punch above their weight, and seeing them play this week was horrendous. That was a very sloppy game from all parties involved. In the opening SOT, I was like laughing because of the Meteos mess up with Jarvan. But I'm very surprised by CLG, the fact that they're in this position, because I do think that they could punch above their weight and could have been a better team. I was predicting them middle of the pack too, but like, this is a team I could see competing in playoffs for like fourth, and here they aren't. So yeah, I mean, I'm very surprised by CLG's sort of underperformance coming into the split.
Mine's actually Cloud9, and I didn't think Cloud9 looked or had a bad offseason. I thought they'd be really good. I gave them, I believe, an A in my offseason.
They got a lot of criticism, by the way, too.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be good, though. I thought they were really good. I thought Fen would, going away from TSM, the pressure of having to perform on TSM, he'd look better on C9. But they've looked so dang good. So good. They've looked better. I've not been more excited about a team maybe since Immortals in 2016, because I haven't seen a team just kind of mow down the competition. Even Team Liquid's era of like this dynastic four straight titles, they have not destroyed teams a lot of times. There's a lot of been long games, 35-minute slogs, waiting for Double Lift to hit 6 items. Cloud9 are just rolling through people. And we have not really seen a team like this dominate NA since Immortals back in 2016 of Huni, Reignover, Pole Belter, Adrian, Wild Turtle. I'm really excited to see a team that looks coordinated with their aggression. It's not that they're aggressive, it's that they're coordinated with every move they make. And Sven looks like he's alive again. He hasn't died once.
Yeah.
He hasn't died once the entire split. He looks rejuvenated.
He looks so happy.
He looks so happy.
If you look
He's
at his
happy
player
to be there.
cams, he's actually happy, which is every time they cut to him on TSM, he seemed to look miserable.
Every time he wins, he's doing the boxing pose, him and Licorice, that team, Sven's never gonna be, he's never gonna be sneaky. He's never gonna be the troll. He's never gonna be the meme lord. He's never gonna bring the team together with his, I'm never gonna tilt attitude. But he's bringing this new kind of edge to the team. And if you talk to people, Sven's a very funny guy. He's not
hilarious.
He's not he's not a mean person. He's a really friendly guy. He's just kind of shy and introverted. And that's fine. And I'm really, really happy to see Sven after 2 years of everyone criticizing him. And I've criticized him before. He did not look good at times at TSM, but he's finally, I think, found a home at C9, and they look so dang good. I've not been this excited about a new, really NA team since Immortals.
And I felt bad that they pulled Mithy away from him in TSM because they were such a duo for so long on G2 and Origin, and it's like losing a close friend and going across back to the pond, and so he was kind of displaced on TSM, and now it seems like, from everything I've heard in my reporting, it seems like that team, they really enjoy each other. Jack really asked Niski, Licorice, and Blabber, who would you like to play with? And when players like Vulcan and Sven came up in those conversations, and so it seems like everybody's on the same wavelength from a out-of-game perspective too, which is good.
Well, let's talk about that, because 500 games. 500 games, that's how many that Sven and Vulcan played together in Korea when they went to boot camp ahead of the rest of the team. That's a lot of time that you're spending one-on-one with someone that you're essentially going to have to work with for the rest of the year. So just the fact that they were able to build up that synergy, build up that bond and that friendship, I think speaks wonders to just the, internal strengths of the team. But Jacob, I want to come to you now because I did want to talk about your article again. Cloud9 went to lengths to get Vulcan, financially as well. So is he worth it?
I think if we're looking at the small sample size of 4 games that we have right now, yes, absolutely. Long term, we'll see. I mean, he's a player that wanted to be there. Zeyzal and Froskurinn, which ultimately had to be dished to Evil Geniuses to make this work. That's a big cost. Froskurrinn's reigning MVP. Zeyzal's one of the best supports in North America. But from a culture perspective, that's something, and for my article, I interviewed executives from every single team mentioned, which is Dignitas, Evil Geniuses, and Cloud9. And something Jack Etienne reiterated to me was very much that this team wanted to be together. The players had say in who were being together, and they're all highly motivated in a way that, unfortunately, I don't necessarily know if Froskurinn and Zeyzal were. There was a little bit of tension between Froskurinn and Blabber. Not that they were necessarily being toxic or rude to each other, but rather they both wanted the starting spot full time. Finally,
of course, that's fair.
They're both worth it, right? Froskurrinn's an MVP level jungler. Blabber's the best young jungler in the league at that point. And so they do deserve it, but it seemed like Jack said that Froskurinn wanted pretty massive changes, and it was probably going to sacrifice a lot more than the team that they ultimately did. And bot lane seemed like needed to change indefinitely. So moving out Sneaky, which obviously is heartbreaking to a lot of different fans, that was a big move. But I do think, on the note of Vulcan, I think that Vulcan right now has showed that he's worth it. He had probably the best, and feel free to disagree with me, my colleagues. I think he had the best performance of any North American player at Worlds. Really a breakout after a great season in 2019. And I think that he's continuing that into this year, and he seems very at home with this team. Yeah. So far so worth.
Yeah, it's pretty worth it. For everyone, if you're wondering, you could check out the rest of Jacob's article all on Vulcan and Cloud9 and that huge buyout at ESPN Esports. But I kind of want to talk, I thought that it was fun how you said that Cloud9 looks like they're more coordinated, with this coordinated aggression. Yeah. Because they still have Blabber as their jungler, and he's their starting jungler. And he's the one where last year he was just trying to go in at all times and make plays. So now do you see with a little bit of his play, does it feel like it's a little bit more coordinated, would you say, or is it still the same Blabber?
Yeah, I mean, you saw Reaper, you know Reaper, he tweeted out, it's like, oh wow, this Blabber's improved really, really quickly. Like, oh, big brain Blabber. And I think Blabber's always had the potential to be that kind of player. But it's always been because he's been splitting time with Froskurinn, right? Reaper didn't have the bandwidth to really train up Froskurinn and train up Blabber. Now that he only has Blabber to really focus on, we're seeing the results of Blabber has the potential to be one of the best junglers in the West. Not just NA, I think he has the potential to be one of the best junglers in the West. We look at him at Worlds last year. I mean, he went against Tarzan, he went against Yankos, and I think he bettered both of them in the early game. Sure, he passed the
I still remember that bot lane with the turret dive. Yeah.
But it was beautiful. But no, he had really good early games in both of them, and he beat two of the best junglers in the world. Now, if you can take that early game and elongate it and make him a full big brain jungler, and actually have an all-around jungler that he can use his mechanical talents within, Blabber is going to be so good. And it's the reason why they were able to send off Froskurinn, because Froskurinn is the MVP for a reason. It was not a fluke MVP season. Froskurinn has been consistently one of the better junglers in LCS for the last 4 years. But I think it was a really good decision by Cloud9. I think Blabber has a lot of potential, and man, big brain Blabber. Reaper and Blabber, I think that duo is going to, by the end of the split, we're going to be like, wow, Reaper made a monster out of Blabber.
Yeah, Reaper always making those good coaching decisions. I want to bring up another question from chat.
Hey, Jat.
Jat's not in here. Jat's not in here. He'd be in here going hold up, you want to see analysis? Check me out. No, but I do want to bring up a question from chat. This is from Jared. And Darren, I want to ask this to you. What are the group's thoughts on XC9 supports like Zeyzal and Smoothie underperforming once they have left the org?
Good question. I mean, Zeyzal on EG, I pinpointed him in our preseason show as probably the weakest link on EG, and it kind of has been that way. I think it's more about the structure of the team, the organization, the coaching, all that stuff. Zeyzal just needs to be solid, and I told that about all of EG. They just need to be stable, and they can win games. They're 1-3, but they're probably one of the better 1-3 teams in the league. They lost an unfortunate base race, and I don't necessarily think Zeyzal is the quote-unquote worst player on that team. Jisuke has problems with positioning. He might have a couple of ideas on where he should be, versus his vision is allowing him to be. So yes, there are problems with supports having leaving something like a Cloud9 that is a little bit more structured, and you have someone like Reaper that can help and coach. But there's still a ceiling there that I think Zeyzal can reach.
Would this be a hot take? Sneaky carried them?
That's interesting.
Would that be
I was going to say, I think this is getting into a lot of assumptions, though. Yeah. It's not hard analysis, but I do think the atmosphere of C9 is such, and it's remained the same, but the atmosphere they've always tried to cultivate is one where if you lose, losing sucks, right? It obviously sucks. All of these are highly competitive people, but the attitude on C9 was always okay, now we need to do something fun, or we need to just move past it, right? And the mindset they always wanted to have is not dwelling on those losses, not being super serious, not retreating into yourself, I guess, and kind of taking those losses super harshly. And I feel we'll find out when they lose, right? If they lose when they lose this split, whether that kind of attitude remains the same. But I do think, just based on how happy the team is right now, that's something that they really want to continue to cultivate. And again, this is making a lot of assumptions, but I think that atmosphere is really vital. Just speaking as someone who I get in my own head, I'm really harsh on myself. And sometimes I just need someone to be okay, we're going to, go out, do something that's not focusing on your loss.
Yeah, I think the genius of Cloud9 is they do have that comfortable atmosphere. You could tell from all the content that they make. They're all buddies, they're all friends. They actively trash talk each other. I was looking for the proper phrasing.
Well, no, I think that's good. Like FPX, the current world champions, like that was that attitude that they had on their team too. Like if you go on Weibo, they're constantly making fun of each other.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a good environment to have. Jacob, I want to come to you.
There was one thing I just want to make clear. So Jack said in my interview with him about this that he did actually inquire about getting Smoothie or Biofrost, and obviously those two players were traded for each other during the offseason, so neither were available because it seemed like both TSM and CLG wanted to do that. But I just want to read this quote from Jack Etienne real quick. Although I had kind of negotiated verbals for a lot of my players to move on to other teams, until I had my Vulcan deal done, none of them really mattered. I would not sign a single deal until I knew my Vulcan deal, which was super important to Cloud9 that it was done. I had to be ready to, whatever the deal was, to make sure that Vulcan was coming out here. Because at the end of the day, I had already made a decision that Vulcan was my guy, and I'm going to figure out a way to make that happen. That is a huge vote of confidence for someone who's been in the league for 7 years. Obviously, he's been here since season 3, and he's sort of like probably the most, between him and Steve, the executives with the most power and experience in the league right now. And so for him to be so sold on Vulcan, and from the influence of Sven, who they were interviewing at that point in time, and also his 3 players, that's a huge vote of confidence for what they ultimately got. And I do think personality meant just as much as performance.
Yeah, Vulcan's personality is great. He is hilarious. Like, you should follow him on Twitter because he's really funny. He has a great dry sense of humor.
French Canadians are fun people.
Yeah, him, DeMonte, I think Acadian, they're like the Twitter group of people that you need to follow if you want that spice
premium
premium
LCS
memes from your NA North America talent. But okay, so I kind of want to move on. FlyQuest, they're kind of like in everyone's thoughts right now because of their whole Tree Quest initiative. They were planting forests with their success from this week, but then unfortunately they did get taken down by Team Liquid. Now, when I was watching this game, it looked like it was pretty back and forth, but at the end they did take the loss, and it did look a little discombobulated towards the end. So, Darren, do you think that loss was as bad as it looked?
No, I don't think so. I think FlyQuest is one of the most surprising brands and teams that we probably have this split. I think when you think about something like Wild Turtle and Ignar, and Emily, we were talking about this, about how Ignar gets to perform really well when he's on the right team. So it looks like he's found the right team and found the right partner with Wild Turtle. Usually when you think of Wild Turtle, it's like that all-in, best-in mentality, and it might backfire, but they seem to be on the right track. They seem to have a really great brand synergy within the Rift and outside of it. And I think that that's only going to grow, no pun intended, FlyQuest's FlyQuest's presence in League of Legends as a whole. And if they're playing the long game, which I think they are, I know Trisha Shijita, she's fantastic, and I really like the course they're on.
I love this FlyQuest team. I actually think this is a great team for Ignar because everyone on this team kind of wants to go in, right? They really want to go ham. I think when you do have a team like that, sometimes when you're in a game and it's not going your way and you keep picking fights, it's going to actually snowball and end up looking worse. We see that from other teams a lot of the time, IG. But I think this is a great team for Ignar, and I want to see like a little bit more jungle support synergy, and I think once they get that down, they can have like really great roams. Like Ignar is amazing at that, and everyone wants to go in, like put Wild Turtle on something that he can carry on, that he can go in on. Unfortunately, Senna is like really strong right now, but I don't think that's necessarily a Wild Turtle champion when I think of something that he can really, really carry on. And PoE is another great addition to this team. I've always thought really highly of Santorin. He's one of my favorite junglers in LCS, actually. So I love the potential. I hate to use that word, but like I love what this team can do. I love that they want to be hyper aggressive, and I think we need more of that in North America, actually.
And then top lane, you have Viper's diversity in his champion pool. I mean, pulls out Riven, gets 8 kills, no deaths on it, and
well, he also wants to go in.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it suits that whole team mentality.
Well, then here's the quick question. What did you think of him on Mord? Because that felt off.
He got picked on, I feel.
I feel like every Mordekaiser gets picked on, though. I mean, just by the nature of the champion, you kind of have to put them in the dumpster, because if you don't, if they just have a very even lane, then they're going to kill you late in the game. So like, you kind of have to put the Mordekaiser in the dumpster.
I mean, he was ulting double lift in those fights, and those are losing fights. And I think his job was just like, let's take double lift out of the fight and we'll 4v4. for
Right, but that's
5 seconds, 6 seconds.
That's why you have to camp out the Mordekaiser, because in the event that he just has an even laning phase and he goes
Exactly.
0-0, and then he's like got 200 farm and shows up in a fight, like
Exactly.
he's just gonna like have Leandres or whatever else, and he's just gonna instant kill your.
They
double
played
your
around the
inhibitor.
Mordekaiser correctly,
That's
and
how you play.
FlyQuest didn't adjust around that. They were still like, let's pull out that damage threat that double lift has, and it just didn't work.
Well, they do play again later today. Hopefully, fingers crossed for no more Mord. I kind of want to move on to EG because they're coming out winless in week 2, and this is a team that we kind of talked about. It's like Froskurinn, last split's MVP. We still have Bang there. This still is a roster of good players. So is their loss streak right now just like bad karma from being evil, or what?
Don't pick Sona Togkedge.
Okay, don't pick Sona Togkedge.
It's bad karma from that.
Great.
I will die on this hill.
Oh, it was a great pick. I loved it.
You know, I think that the thing is with Evil Geniuses is that of all the LCS teams that currently exist, they don't have a culture yet, right? We do have Immortals.
Hashtag live evil.
I mean, no. To my point, like Immortals and Dignitas inherited 2 teams. They inherited the Optic people. Many of the same staff work there.
Yes.
And Dignitas inherited a lot of the Clutch people, at least from the originally they did. But you know. To my point, Evil Geniuses is building completely from scratch. They got 0 in the EchoVox acquisition because they bought the spot, not the team. And as a result of this, my biggest concern is what are they? They've been my biggest question mark. I've not really had hot takes either way on them because you just don't know. Well, they're all the players are coming, you know, like many of them are ex-Cloud9, but like the management comes from very different places. You have Greg Kim, their LCS director, who used to work in analytics at Riot. You have Sabrina Wong, who used to work at 100 Thieves and Immortals prior. And then you have Andy Barton, who used to work at Dignitas. You have people who are trying to discover one another as a staff and also as a team. And I think that that's just as important as anything else. That's why you see players like Finn and others and Vulcan go into Cloud9 and they mesh so well because Cloud9 knows what they are. They have an identity as a team and as an organization. EG does not yet. Not under current management. And I think that that's a big thing, is trying to figure out who you are and what you are.
I think I'd like to give them just a little bit of time. They are a new org coming into the space. From what I understand, they do really have that small staff, new staff, like you had mentioned.
Yep.
I want to give them a little bit more time. It's only 2 weeks
I think
in.
them and FlyQuest. I think them and
their game with
FlyQuest
TSM was
benefit.
close, too.
It was close too, but I'm talking more from the org aspect. But I do want to move on to our week 3 matchups because I do believe we got some doozies. So let's go ahead and check those out in a second.
It does play.
But okay, so one of the, we're just talking about them, EG and FlyQuest. I think they're going to take each other on. Is that going to be an easy stop for FlyQuest?
I would say no. I think EG has a lot of potential. I think the thing about EG that I wanted to hit upon is that their identity was supposed to be Chovy. That was supposed to be their big get, right? Like they went so hard for Chovy, offered him the biggest deal in Western esports history from my knowledge. It would have been more than $3 million. That's what kind of money we're talking about here. And he declined because he wanted to play with CV Max on Dragon X. So I think EG had this grand plan, right? They had this master plan of like, we got Bang, we got Froskurinn, we got Zazel, we got the rookie Kumo, and we're gonna have Chovy in the middle, kind of being that carry. And then Chovy was like, I don't need $3+ million. I'm gonna play for CV Max.
So do you think, I want to ask all of you, do you think that Jizuke is the right pick? In my interviews with Andy Barton, he mentioned Milka, the player that is now not able to play on Vitality because of visa issues, but also was a strong rookie from Europe. Do you think Jizuke is the right fit for this team? Darren, I think you have opinions on this.
I think Jizuke can be fine. Again, everyone on Evil Geniuses, if their expectation is we can be middle of the pack and make playoffs this first split, that's a success for Evil Geniuses in their first split. The problem right now, I agree that they don't have an identity off the Rift. I think you were also alluding that they don't really have one in the Rift either. Team Liquid has their really good side lane pressure. FlyQuest, they want to go in and they want to fight, which I'm really excited for this EG FlyQuest matchup because guess what I think EG is really good at? They're good at skirmishes in the first 15 minutes. They come out on top a decent amount on their skirmishes.
We saw that against TSM, right? It was fine. It was fine until it wasn't.
Until it went 5v5 team fights and Broken Blade was like, I'm just
Biofrost
gonna
and Broken
Haymaker.
Blade just tore them apart.
And then set and Haymaker half of my health for my shield. Then
What a champion.
Balanced champion.
I just don't think that.
He's my champion. Okay, he's my champion. But okay, so we're talking about EG. EG is taking on CLG in the first match of the week. Let's go ahead and now pull up those matchups. Here we go. Yeah, EG taking on CLG. That'll be an interesting match in my opinion.
EG wins that.
You think EG still wins this? You have no faith in CLG, right?
They look lifeless until they show me any signs of life.
Before CLG beats TSM.
If CLG beats TSM, I will reconsider that. But right now, 0-3, they look lifeless. It's not that they're 0-3, it's that they're lifeless. They have shown no pulse so far. Until they show me anything, I have EG in that matchup.
What about the FlyQuest C9 matchup?
That's going to be great, I think.
That's good.
It's going to be them, again, like FlyQuest really, really want to be aggressive early. These two teams are going to smash into each other. So it'll at least be exciting, even if it's, slightly stompy on the favor of C9, you know? I'm picking C9 in this, I'll just say that.
Viper Licorice, I think, is going to be a fun matchup. Because if Viper goes aggressive and Licorice can't keep up with that.
The other on this slide is Team Solo Mid and Dignitas, which is like, Team Solo Mid is the one team we've not talked about here that I'm sitting here going, things could go, like if they lost to EG, I was like, oh God, all hell breaks loose in that team, right? They are the one that needs everything to go right.
They almost did.
I know. They take losses. I think they take losses pretty hard, and I'm worried about that, right? This is the team that Tyler and I both said, both on the free agency show and the kickoff show, that like this is a team that could either be one of the best teams in the league if they get everything going their way, or they could be a total dumpster fire. And I think the jury's still out on that.
Yeah.
But like if they start taking losses, and granted, Dignitas is a very good team right now, and they're on a roll. But looking at that, it's like, how many teams can you lose to until you feel bad?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I had TSM as one of my top 3 teams, and we will touch upon them because they still have a match to play today against CLG. Along
They
with
lose tonight. That's an if.
That's an if. But we are going to talk about that stuff later. Instead, let's now go ahead and talk about the LEC. We can throw the standings up here, but I mean, the biggest unsurprise for me was G2 still undefeated. Still undefeated. It doesn't make sense. I thought that especially after their flip-flop with Caps and Perks, which we can talk about later, that maybe they'd be slowed down a little bit, but still completely undefeated. We had Rogue still giving a pretty good performance, Origin as well. There were a lot of really good matchups for this week that I'm excited to talk about. Here we go. We have the standings here. G2 still 4-0, Origin and Rogue and Fnatic all 3-1. Excel Esports, I was also pretty impressed by them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Excel is part of, if I remember correctly, I think Excel is part of this weird like mid-tier where I'm not really sure where those teams are gonna shake out. Mad Lions is kind of in there as well because they're just a talented team of young rookies that still kind of have to figure out a lot of like in-game macro stuff. I think the big thing is we were kind of thinking about Fnatic after week 1 and where they were going to be in relation to these teams. And now they came out week 2, looked a lot stronger. You can make the argument that their schedule was a lot easier, but I think it was a really good statement week 2 for Fnatic, and so I was really happy to see that.
XL is the culture that I've looked at. I think that Youngbuck is really good at what he does as a leader in a team. Everyone is very complimentary of him in that regard on every team he's been on. I think that XL has the opportunity to, later in the season, really punch above their weight. I know I use that phrase a lot, but I actually do think that they're the one team that I look at and go, oh, they could be better than where they are right now. I agree with Emily on the point of the Mad Lions, but look at Origin. Good Lord, I think all the hype is warranted, right? Like
Definitely.
They definitely were the one team that, like, I was being told pretty frequently, oh, you're overhyping them. They're not as good as you say they are. They're not as good as you think they are. Come on. They had probably the best offseason of any European team. They scored Xerxes. They scored upset 2 of the best players on their respective teams, Splice and Schalke 04 previous season. And then they picked up Destiny, who's a little bit more of a wild card, but he's performed pretty well. I mean, he seems to fit in the system, and they have Alfari, who's like one of the best top winners in the league already. They've got good pieces, and they're really showing out. I'm really impressed by the Origin performance at this point.
Now, I know there's something that you're not impressed by, Tyler. Please.
God-given, God-Gilius. I was so excited. We were transporting a relic from the past that was so good. And they were like, oh, God-given. Oh, my earpiece is falling out because I'm so sad because I was so excited. I was so excited. Forgiven was that guy. Like, he was the guy who could beat Uzi. He was the guy who could he was the old school AD carry. And we were like, can he translate his success from 2016, 2017 into this new wacky world of alcoves and mage bots and Aphelios and Senna? And so far, it looks like he is still stuck in the past. And Schalke looks really deflating. It's very similar to CLG for me, where they have a roster that should be much better than Ofer, but they have no life. There's no real pulse with them. There's no identity with them. And Kikis is in Europe right now just waiting to count on Gilius' job, because he's done that like 10 times already.
Gilius was definitely the surprise pickup of this roster for me. I think that there were better options in the jungle position. I mean, apparently he did quite well in scrims, so I guess they bought in on the scrim bucks. But yeah, I mean, Schalke 0-4 literally, and I think that at this point, they are definitely.
that was delayed. Like
a little delayed on that, Darren. A little delayed.
Yeah, it was good.
Keep up.
I think that they are definitely the one team that's got to figure this out, and I don't know. I'm not gonna crap on Forgiven. The man had to serve a mandatory military sentence.
Yeah.
Give him some time. But maybe they
That's what I was gonna ask. I was like, we're giving EG the benefit of the doubt. We're not gonna give God Given a little bit of time. It's only the.
I mean, maybe we end back up in the position that SK Gaming was on when he was in that team, and they just start playing Caitlyn again. I know she's out of meta, but
let's do it.
You can still play Zaya.
I think the big thing with this team, and I'm pretty sure it was Frosk that brought this up in our pre-show, but it's what happens when they lose, right? Because if this team had come out and started winning, I think it actually kind of would have snowballed in a better direction than it has now, which is that they keep losing. And it came down to that Mad Lions game, which was not a great game, let's just say. And I think there's where you really see that this team, once they started losing, were going to take those losses really hard. And I think that is also part of what has happened.
So we have the rookies of Mad Lion, we have Schalke 0-4, we have G2 continuously undefeated again. What's new? Darren, for you, I know you were watching the LEC. What was the most surprising to you? Because we have all these things, and then what else?
How Origin almost did actually beat G2 despite a wonky draft. I think that.
Wait, did they?
Yeah. I believe
Pretty
so.
close.
They came back and took a Baron.
There were bits and pieces where it's like, oh, cool. Do they have this objective control? Oh, excuse me 1 second. Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. I need to cut you off because we have someone more important coming on the screen. Listen, that's not a diss at you.
She's more important
than anyone who is sitting on this couch right now. Okay, we've got Froskurinn, LEC caster, analyst, fashionista, queen of everything at this point. She's all the way from EU. She's giving me the look. Girl, I love you. How are you? Good morning, evening over there?
Is this do you wait a second? You're like, yeah, Ovly, you're coming loud and clear. I can hear you right. Yeah, it's great. It's super early.
We'll gas you up so much because you gas all of us up.
Get him out. Get him out.
We appreciate you very much.
I saw Vegas coming in with the pizza box behind her, and I love how the camera immediately shut down. It's like, no, we wanted Frosk and Frosk alone.
Is it pineapple?
So okay.
I mean, it is a pineapple on pizza situation. Frosk, how are you?
Yeah, I can confirm it's a pineapple on pizza situation down there. You thought you were gonna get one and you got two instead. What up, guys? Let's talk LEC.
Yeah, let's definitely talk LEC now. I don't know.
Get out of here, Vegas.
Get out of again. All right, you know what? Let's just jump straight into it. Darren just brought it up. The G2 Origin game. You were the one who was casting or on the desk going through the pick and bans. You had some concerns with the drafts. What were those exactly?
Basically, the Soraka top has obviously taken the LEC by storm. It was G2 who baited out that they were going to play Sona. They instead played the Soraka. I've heard that it's been going around scrims. And when we saw the Soraka come out in the Origin game, yes, here we go. Okay, what are they gonna do? We need some sort of split pusher. We need something that can 1-4 in the end. They grab a rumble, and I think both simultaneously, Yamato and I were like, no, not rumble.
Yeah, you were just like, not the rumble, please.
Yeah.
And the big issue is, of course, that Soraka, when I was learning about the pick and kind of talking to teams, a lot of teams were saying it can be in response to something like a rumble, which has seen a lot of ban attention to it. But the idea is that Rumble lays down his ultimate, and then you can just absorb so much of that pressure through the redemption itemization, as well as the fact that Soraka's just going to press R and get everything back.
So, Frost, my question for you is, I believe that right before this game had happened, the LEC had run almost a package of saying how well Origin had been drafting, and they've just been doing really well in the picks and bans. So what happened here? Was it just a brain fart on the coach's end, or were they just nervous against G2?
I think Yamato actually really called it out, and one of the big issues was the effective champion pool for acting jungler Xerxes there. The fact that they had really identified Gragas as the central piece, that it had risen up so high as like a primary, like blue pick priority pick for them. And then as soon as 3 junglers were banned out the gate, the Gragas was taken away. We knew that Xerxes didn't really have like the Lee Sin side of that matchup. It felt like everything really fell apart, and then the Rumble was just like the cherry on top.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about G2 a little bit more in depth, even in and out of this game. You talked about it, the rocket top. A lot of people in the community, because they hadn't seen it as much before, were thinking, all right, here comes G2. First, they're doing the perks and cap switch. Are they even for real with this? Are they just messing around? They see the Soraka. They're like, are they trolling at this point? But it's like, no, these are very legitimate strategies. The Soraka definitely worked for Wonder. And Emily, I believe you had said that you think that perks or caps is even better than perks in the bot lane?
No, I think he's starting. That's not my hot take.
He's starting. Hot take.
Earlier in the preseason stuff that we did, I was like, this could work out a lot better just because of their understanding of matchups and Perks' roam timing. And I actually think you've already seen that. I also want to give a massive amount of credit to Mickey X, who is kind of the unsung hero of these bottom lanes. I think a lot of people just see him joking about inting and him and Grabs going back and forth, and obviously they keep up a really a good attitude about how he is constantly dying, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to remember that what he's doing is taking all of these solo laners and basically turning them into bottom laners. And the bot lane 2v2 is a lot different than playing a solo lane. And so I think Mickey X deserves a ton of credit. And I think him and Caps have been performing really well. I think Caps has taken to the role immediately a little bit better than Perks did, but I also think because G2 were already doing a lot of those role swaps anyway, it's not necessarily as much of a jump as when they were like, okay, Perks is moving down to specifically make room so the Caps can be on the team.
Frosk, is that something that you would agree with? Do you think that Mickey, our anime boy in the mid lane, is really pulling it out?
Yeah, he's definitely not running it down anymore. Just to kind of continue on what Emily is talking about, it ultimately just makes G2 that much stronger across the board, and I don't know if another team would have the same amount of success or be able to pull off what G2 have done, simply because the way that they think about matchups that Emily was talking about has almost completely changed how a lot of LEC teams think about matchups. They find windows where they just break things through either itemization or trade patterns or specific levels where you're like, I thought the matchup went like this, but apparently it actually goes like this. And then you just get more information of more of their members who are playing across more roles. So now Caps is downloading all that information about how all the 2v2 bot lanes work, and then suddenly you can mix and match more than ever before for G2. And again, I don't know if that's possible for any other team, not just in the LEC, but kind of across League of Legends. So I thought my idea would be that with G2 making this role swap, it would kind of be an immediate short-term loss, that you're learning a new role, that you're probably going to see Perks be a little bit rusty, Caps maybe take some growing pains to get used to it, but then long-term it would be a massive benefit, because the more information that you get to these guys playing more champions, the better that they're going to be at breaking those matchups that made them such a formidable team to begin with.
You know, I sat in and helped produce a few weeks ago an interview with Carlos that's forthcoming, wink, 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 wink. And he said the ultimate goal for G2 is to be able to put any player in any position on this team and sort of just make a game time decision, which is interesting because, I mean, they are some of the best players in all of Europe. I have no doubt that someone like Wonder could go play mid lane if he really wanted to and they could throw people around, but if they get that, where they can just throw people wherever they want based on what they're feeling that day, in my opinion, that changes the game of League of Legends as we know it in a way that is sort of inconceivable in prior eras. It's been a long time since we've seen people that be that flexible, and I think that from that perspective, I mean, G2's scary that it's going this well, and I think that if it continues to go this well, we may see even more crazier stuff in the summer or next year.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say what's really cool about G2 is I think the point they probably want to get to, or something similar to this, is like if there's a really strong champion in the meta, oh, we have someone that can play that, but they're not in like X lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot of teams have to think about it, but not G2. If there's something that's super strong, they have a player that can play that, they can stick that player in the like precisely best matchup for them, and something like that is just insanely valuable.
So then, Frosk, who can stop G2 right now? Because Origin,
Invictus Gaming.
Oh no.
They may not get them for a few months. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out. No FPX?
I mean, FPX aren't looking too hot right now.
No,
so I
looking
think
too hot.
Gaming
No,
are
not
probably
at all.
the safer bet. But the reality is that outside of Fnatic, really no one seems to come close to where G2 are. We, of course, have G2 versus Fnatic coming up in week 3, so hopefully we can get a good taste of this. But what kind of Jacob and Emily are always alluding to is that, you know, you pick any champion and G2 will be able to execute on this to, like, the best ability. But the asterisk there is the best ability in Europe. And we just got the rude awakening that the best ability in Europe didn't cut it when it came to lifting a world championship. And so it's like, yes, you are seeing the best players in their role across every single position in Europe, probably of the Western regions. But when you're talking about guys like Rookie, Knight, The Shy, Zoom, like these types of names, that's where G2 are starting to kind of come up short and are having to really reach for, but we can play this champion or this specific strategy, or this is going to be the bridge that gets us to that next level. And I think where they need to be is, no, actually we can take the standard matchups and the crazy ones, and we can lane across the best in the world and beat them. That's what it's going to take for them to win Worlds.
Fingers crossed for them.
I
need another Western team to just make it to the finals again. Hopefully NA this time.
Hey, Dig Pop's out there. Dig is out there.
Dig is going to win Worlds.
She said The Shy, she said Knight, she did not say Johnson though, so I mean,
yeah, Frost may be slipping a little bit in her analysis there.
No.
You know,
I don't think she can talk back to us now.
The Froskurinn buff definitely exists for when, you know, she goes to a region, they get internationally competitive, and then she leaves the region, and then they win world championships. So we need her to now come to the LCS so they can get internationally competitive, and then go back to the LPL so they lose their way.
Jacob, I have invested so much time to my eyes just like touching the LCS right now. I've watched all of you guys' game, and I'm like, even if I win, I think it's too late.
Can you at least teach them what a side lane is?
Yeah, can you teach them? Can you teach them wave management, please?
I will say this. Like, I know it's like the punching bag of the meme, but in defense of my LCS brothers, they do know what a side lane is on the top level. I think what's really concerning for me, just as my one LCS hit point, is that in the top teams, so like your TLs, your Digs, your C9s, you're still seeing really uncharacteristic individual mistakes decide games. I use the perfect example of like in the Immortals game when Soaz walks up into that tri-bush on Karma and the cocoon from Elise comes out just like super far right. It's like, if he hits that, that game's probably just over then and there. And the thing is it's things like thresh hooks that are being missed, those types of cocoons that are being missed. So like the side lanes from the top teams I think are actually being hit, but there's still an issue of tightening up some of these mechanics that, again, on the top level. The Shy is not missing that. He's hitting that every single time.
Jacob, I think you had a quick point, and as you do that, I want to throw our scores up there so we could check out the last remaining scores.
I had a very quick question for Froskurinn. You have watched a lot of LCS, as you just said. So which is more top-heavy, the LEC or the LCS at this point?
Ooh. Oh, that's actually a really good question. I would say probably the LEC is more top-heavy, just because I think the sheer gap between Fnatic and G2 versus pretty much everyone else, let's even take Origin, I think is like pretty massive, versus the sheer gap between like your Digs and your TLs and your C9s. I will say this though, I think Dig is, in my personal opinion, slightly inflated right now. I really think that Cloud9 is
no argument from here.
The strongest team right now.
Yeah, Cloud9 is the strongest team. I don't think anyone would disagree that Cloud9 is the strongest team.
No, definitely not. Maybe Liquid win. I mean, me and Frosk talked about this for the pre-show where we're like, Brox is the upgrade for TL, but we just
you guys are the holders of the Brox's stock, so that's, I mean, hope it pays out.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, well here we have the final scores of the weekend. Look at that. You know, Fnatic over there with that win over Schalke.
Schalke.
Excel taking the win over Mad Lions. G2 beating Vitality, of course. And that's the game where Perks had the pentakill in the bot lane.
Woof.
I do believe.
Vitality. Woof. Woof.
Oh, no. The Misfits game, that was actually really fun. That was their first win against SK Gaming. And that was heavily off the back of Fabivin in the mid lane on that Kiana. Really proven why you should be banning that champion.
Yeah, just Kiana is insanely strong.
Yeah, definitely. Here we have Fnatic taking down SK Gaming as well. And fun storyline coming out there with Selfmade taking on his own team and, you know, just pile driving them into the ground.
I mean, it did start out too fancy. It got a little bit scary in there for a minute.
It was a little scary. Trying to build up the boy just a little bit, like, come on, you can do it. And he's just looking at his old teammates like, oh no. Big bro, please.
Looking at his old team that, if not for Vitality, may be the worst team in the league. But I don't know. I'm selling my Schalke stock here too. So.
Oh, it's not. No, come on.
Oh, this game. Okay, no. This was. I thought you were about to put the Mad Schalke
The
game
Mad
on screen. I was like, no,
No.
Oh my
I
god.
had to cast it.
Mad are my new favorite team to watch, just because I love like a team of super talented like young players. And I tweeted out that I cursed them by liking them, and Peter was like, yeah, you did. And I was like, but you won. And he's like, yeah, but the audience lost.
Oh my gosh.
This is all you need to know about Emily. She like sits at home and she's like, I really want a team that I can put all of my faith in, all of my emotional investment, and they'll disappoint me at every single turn. And then as soon as they meet that category. Yeah.
The ESPN curse, it doesn't.
I mean, I'm used to watching LPL where you have a lot of teams like that, right? Where they're just like really young, really mechanically talented, maybe not making the best macro decisions ever.
That's about all 17 of the teams, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Darren, what did you think of this
But they're really good at pressing their buttons, okay?
Yeah, but Darren, what did you think of this one?
Oh, for that one? Oh, I don't know where we're at in this point of the conversation.
We got lost.
Yeah,
I got a little bit lost.
I think Selfmade is one of the better junglers in the LEC, and I think that you see him getting a win over his former team is vindication that he made the correct move. Fnatic is a very strong organization, always has been, and I think when you go to a young player goes to Fnatic, you can see them build them up. I mean, you've seen Whippo was behind Soaz, and then Whippo became the starter. Selfmade.
Hell, even Steelback worked in there.
Yeah, even Steelback worked many moons ago. And I think as long as you have Reckless in that bot lane, anchoring them, you have some veteran leadership, regardless of what's going on behind the scenes. Nemesis is another young talent that they've been building up. So really cool to see that their organizational structure works out for them that way.
Let's go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's always a discussion between, like, everyone saying Broxa versus Selfmade, and I think that's kind of, like, the wrong way to look at it, because it was essentially, like, Broxa versus Fnatic as a unit, because for whatever reason, they just weren't synced together or working cohesively as a team. Whippo talked about it a bit in PGL, that it just feels like the team is communicating much better, and so it's now about reevaluating what the ceiling looks like, not pound for pound talent-wise between Broxa and Selfmade, but what Selfmade now unlocks this level of Fnatic. And if previously with Broxa, Fnatic were able to go to things like knockouts at Worlds, and then obviously when they had caps, they went to a Worlds Finals, then personally, I think this iteration of Fnatic is better, and so now the goalposts have moved to, again, at least knockouts at Worlds. Can you get back to that World Final? And I think by diversifying, not just being a bot-oriented team, or not just being kind of like the Garen, Yuumi type of team, that with Selfmade, they can be a mid-jungle oriented team as part of their arsenal of tools. So I think that's like the big starting point is the new ceiling and identifying what that is with Selfmade's Fnatic.
And Frosk, I don't want to keep you up too late at night, so I do want to move on to our next team that we wanted to talk about, Rogue. We heard, are they the potential dark horse of the league? They took the loss to Origin, but still went 3-1 after 2 weeks. So what do we think of the team as a whole, Frosk?
I think the word dark horse is certainly being thrown around a lot to Rogue. Vedis and I have a pretty aligned, so, okay, hot take. Rogue are a very good team, and they are definitely a top 4 team in the league. I, however, think that the true dark horse or the true villain might be Excel over Rogue at this point.
Whoa,
I think
Really?
I'm
yeah.
I am
I
fist
think-
bumping in the air right now. Thank you, Froskurinn, for validating all my Excel hype.
I think Rogue to me kind of remind me almost a little bit of like Baby Origin in that their fundamental understanding of League of Legends and kind of where their baseline play is, and it kind of always centers around the mid lane. Not necessarily in playing through Larson, but in like if you watch how they set up plays on the map, it's always, okay guys, go mid, get my mid priority, and then sweep out to the side, okay? Go again, get my mid priority and set up and set vision plays. And they can play side lanes, but they're quite clean into like the spine and where they stem from, but then they don't have the same flexibility or versatility of Origin that they can play all three lanes and kind of like the 1-3-1 as consistently or successful. Now, I have been told that what we've seen from Rogue on stage isn't the highest that they've been displaying in scrims. So a lot of the other LEC teams are still giving them so much respect and saying, you've only seen the worst iteration of Rogue, and if that's true, what I'm seeing on stage isn't that bad, still really strong, so I'm just waiting for like the real Rogue to show up and then pop off. But what I've seen from Excel, I just think is like it was coin flip high. So I feel like it's this idea of the consistency that just isn't quite as polished as kind of the other top three teams in Origin, Fnatic, and G2 in Rogue, versus the Excel, like you don't have the same consistency, but you do have that volatile variance high that Excel are starting to show in terms of where you're picking your dark horse.
Rogue is really the example, I think, of what these rookie teams like Misfits and Mad Lions and Vitality want to be one day, right? Like these players have some more experience under their belt than the players that are on Misfits, or most of the players that are on Misfits, Vitality, and Mad Lions. But I think the thing is with Rogue is they're a testament not only to the culture of the LEC and how good they are at developing talent and plucking it, but also I think to the point of scrims, like they just have to get better under pressure, and there are certain people on this team that I think have shown those moments of brilliance. Hansama and Vander among them, right? They have performed very highly on stage before. When Hans made Worlds several years ago with Misfits, and Vander is one of the most experienced players in the league. I think that there's an opportunity for them to really be one of the best teams in Europe and really give Fnatic, Origin, and G2 a hard time. Maybe not G2 as much as the other two, but I think that there's a chance that Rogue shows up and just like they did in summer, maybe plays a little bit better than people predict them to be come playoff time this summer.
With XL, I mean, I want to ask this to Frost, is that you're talking about this high variance, and I think it all starts with Mickey in the mid lane. Like, I've covered Mickey since
I was going to say, this sounds like
beginning.
a Mickey team.
Mickey has always been on his best day. He's at his best. On his best day, he is better than Faker. And I will say that right here. I'm the biggest Faker fan. I've written 20,000 articles about Faker.
No, that's actually, he's insane.
So on Mickey's best day,
insane.
he is better than Faker. He's the best player in the world. But you get that maybe once in 3 years. Otherwise, he is either very, very good if his team plays around him, or he's terrible. He's trash. He's very, very bad. So when I look at XL, I'm very excited about this team. I love Youngbuck. I love the culture they're building. But Mickey, I think he's a really good player. But can you trust him in a playoff series? Can you trust him against a team like Rogue, who I can believe in Larson, I can believe in Inspired, I can believe in Finn. I think these players are more consistent overall. Mickey has that high, but it's like a coin flip and a half. Like, he is Ning on steroids. It's really, really difficult. Mickey is the biggest coin flip player in League of Legends history, and there's no one close.
All right, Frosk, know that you need to go soon, so I have one final question for you, and it's actually coming from our chat. I don't want to read this question out loud, but I signed a contract. So why does NA look worse than Season 9 coming into Season 10? Are they just slower to adapt in changes compared to EU?
Ooh,
that hurt.
I mean, to be yes. No, to be frank, there's not a lot of shade that the LEC can throw right now. Like, we did have a really good day of games on Saturday, or excuse me, on Friday, but on Saturday there were some stinkers. The Mad Lions versus Schalke really comes to mind.
It's burned in my brain, yeah.
I think there's like a recency bias. It's like a recent taste in your mouth. You're like, what was that? Was that like orange juice or toothpaste? That tasted disgusting. Oh, what is this? But the reality is that the LEC has been like brushing its teeth and like throwing back some orange juice as well. So yeah, there's like some fundamental differences. There's definitely some weird stuff happening with like Tom Kench over there. I'm really curious about what's happening in scrims. But I do expect things to even out pretty soon.
On their best days, the LEC is an Angels Envy Rye, and on their worst, they are a Jack Daniels, and that is a big variance in between those two.
I feel like Flowers would get that reference, but I don't get that reference.
One is really good and one is really cheap.
But Frost, thank you so much for joining us and blessing us with your insight. Is there any final thoughts that you want to leave us, either with any upcoming projects of yours? I know you're starting a podcast or anything from the LEC.
Yes, one of 9,000 podcasts that seem to be on the market right now. Yeah, I do a lot of LEC viewing, so I can talk about the LEC with a guy like Crumbs, and you can check it out at the other analyst desk. So peace, guys.
Thanks so much again, Frosk. I freaking love Frosk. Everyone who's watching at home, please go check out her podcast. Maybe we can get some links in there on Twitter or something like that. But I mean, that about wraps it up for all the hot LEC takes in action. We are going to take a quick break, but after that, we're going to be talking about some of the LPL and LCK news that's been happening. But while we take this break, we are going to leave you with a spicy tidbit from G2's owner.
You can see there's coming in there. Okay, he's desperately up towards the Nexus. Kevin is going to be able to go towards him. He's trying to do it. But meanwhile, they're in the base.
I don't have many examples, if any, really, where I would tell you I would go back and do things differently. I wouldn't, because those mistakes have built who I am today. And it's a very cheesy thing to say, but it's the reality, you know? Like, I wouldn't change the back door.
He's very low. They're pushing on the Nexus.
I think it's the greatest thing that happened to me. If I up, then I can go back. You know, what's the best? The best thing I could have done is not up. What's the second best thing I can do? Well, learn something and move on, right? That I can do.
Would you really not change anything? I mean, I'm paying attention mainly. They showed the Expeke play, but I don't think they showed a clip of him bending over and crying. At the I'm bringing it up every single time. Carlos knows that I will continue to bring it up.
Yeah, but he learned. It inspired him.
Is that why he's still a player?
Look, he is rated one of the most successful.
Emily, that's why G2 won Worlds last year. He made up for that. Oh wait, no. Oh, wait. Oh no.
That's a great transition into LPL.
Here we go. If you're watching, clip it, send it to Carlos. Send my regards as well. But yes, let's transition into the LPL, because there is a lot of news happening around that, which consequently makes there less LPL specific news, mainly surrounding around this new disease, the coronavirus that's been coming around. Emily, I know that this means that there is basically an indefinite suspension of all LPL games. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so basically, I think when people are talking about this suspension, they kind of have to remember that the LPL wasn't going to be back until the 5th anyway. So they were already going to have this like super long, weird Lunar New Year break that they always do. But currently, the LPL is suspended due to the spread of the coronavirus while they're trying to contain it in all of China. And obviously, this is not an LPL thing. This is a, China pandemic. So we hope that everyone stays safe. We hope that everyone stays healthy. I think another thing you have to remember is that most players are probably at home. So even if they could travel to Shanghai, they can't because of the travel ban, because of the nature of Lunar New Year as a family holiday. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty poop, not gonna lie. I'm really worried about, what's gonna happen going forward, not only with players' health, but then also we have to think about the repercussions of this on LPL as a region, how well they're going to do if they have to play matches online, that kind of thing. So
yeah, also go ahead.
And we saw Overwatch League cancel their events for February and March, which if that happens in the LPL, it's going to really mess up the rest of the League of Legends competitive season. So I'm hoping that's not the point we eventually reach.
Yeah, just a lot of obstacles thrown in because of this new illness. I mean, LCS specifically, I don't think anything's been officially announced, but you've seen players kind of avoid handshake lines. Fan meets have been canceled, all because they are terrified of catching this thing. Because in LA, I believe there's been 2 cases that have been already noted, but it's also spreading to the LCK. LCK starting up soon, and they're going to have no audience because they want to make sure that their players are safe. And Tyler, I know this sucks because this is their first time that they're having an amazing headliner match between SKT and Damwon.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from multiple sources that right now, looking in the scrims, I know Scrim Bucks, not always the best tell, but Genji and Damwon are apparently looking really, really strong in scrims, and not too surprising, right? Damwon's the same 5 from last year, Genji, lots of talent on that roster, but the first game, T1 versus Damwon, is so exciting. And if I'm looking at that series, the thing I'm looking at most is in the top lane, Naguri versus Kana or Roach. Who's going to be, I think that's the thing with T1. If T1 wants to win this year, it has to come through the top lane. I'm not saying that the top lane needs a carry, but they need someone who they can depend upon. Whenever T1 has had that dependable top laner, they've gone far. They've gone at least quarterfinals, semifinals, won worlds. When they've had misconnections on the top lane, like they had Intara and Tall that one season with Blossom, that team couldn't go anywhere. Even Faker couldn't carry that. So for me, it's Kana or Roach. Can one of those two kind of step out and just take the starter spot? That's what I want to see. I want to see one of them just steal that spot from the other and just keep going forward, because if that happens, T1 can win LCK. If there is a battle for that top spot, no one wins. When you have 2 top laners, you have 0 top laners. You want one really strong top laning starter, and T1 needs that if they want to even come close to beating, the likes of Damwon, Genji, and the other top teams in LCK.
I'm just excited for more Ashley interviews. I miss seeing her face on the front page of Reddit and on Twitter every single day. I want to see more interviews. There was actually a piece of information that went out about LCK interviews specifically saying all players are...
Yeah, Lasso. One of the South Korean invented journalists and photographers, Lasso, he was saying that everyone's going to be wearing masks and they're going to have basically protectors over the microphones just to make sure that media and players stay safe, and they're all going to take place in the press room over there. So
yeah, but sending all of our best regards and well wishes to anyone who may be impacted by this scary illness. Definitely wishing you good health. But now I'm going to wish all of my analysts on the couch good health, because we're moving into power rankings, and the internet does not like that. So
I also don't like.
I know you don't like power rankings, but we're forcing you to do it. We're forcing you to do it.
Who doesn't love power rankings?
Emily just said she.
Name them all, 1 through 10. But because the LPL is suspended and the LCK hasn't started yet, we only have our LCS and LEC power rankings, and we are going to throw them up in just a second. But so I took a glance, but I don't remember any of them, and I didn't vote in them. First of all, who voted in the power rankings?
I have voted.
Yeah, I did.
So there's only 2.
So it was me, Emily, Adele from Europe, Ashley Kong, who we just talked about for Korea, and Miles Jim, who's a North American reporter. So us 5 usually do the global power rankings because of the LPL and because of the LCK not starting yet. We did a NA and EU power ranking. These are our NA power rankings right now. C9, number 1.
Should come as no surprise.
No surprise. Yeah. I think the biggest surprise here, and I think the thing that we're going to be discussing most here, TSM number 5, they're 1 and 2. They're above Immortals, who they beat.
Why is Team Liquid above Dignitas?
Because they have a better understanding of the game. I actually agree with Frosk a bit. The Dignitas are I think they're playing really well, and I like the team a lot, and I want them to do well, but I think they're slightly overrated.
Short it, boys.
But in terms of TSM, TSM's early games, especially week 1, were actually really good. I think they have a lot of good pieces, and if they can put it together, they'll be that team that we talked about when we just looked at this roster on paper.
Now, before we dive a little bit deeper into these rankings, I do want to point this out. Jacob, you're usually on the end of receiving criticism, but now we can sit here and we can ask them why they decided to rank what. But I mean, I didn't have too many issues with those rankings. I think that's pretty fair.
I'm not sure if I'm so sold on TSM at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's on name power, right? And I think...
I don't know.
They did almost lose to EG.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they did.
we talked about team atmosphere earlier of C9, right? And how the team atmosphere just ups the players. Sven looks better because he's on C9. We have to look at TSM and their team atmosphere. And I'm not saying it's bad, but we know this. It's serious. Yeah. It's life or death every game they play. Bjergsen doesn't put up with losing. This is a team that's serious all the time, and talent suppression machine aside, the team is, it's a struggle. Watching them play, sometimes it feels like they're on a tightrope, and any mistake they're going to fall off. it's really tense. I think tense is the best word to sum up TSM because they're always playing like their life is on the line, and that's not the best the best way to play League of Legends sometimes. Especially with C9, who look like, we're Vulcan trolling around, Sven having fun. Like, I think TSM, there's a lot of pressure every time they play, especially with this roster. Like Dardoch, this is his last chance, I think, to be on a star team. It's really pressure filled on TSM.
So the one thing about that though is like, what is the spring split anymore? Like, if you feel like that in the spring split, right? Like, if you
just feels like you're gonna burn out.
I know, exactly. It's like, are we gonna end up in May and June, and like this team's gonna be like so sick of each other, we're gonna start seeing changes in the midseason? Like, lighten up. It's my biggest concern with Liquid too. From like, if they need to, the framing of the context of what they're working at, they need to change that. But I agree with you, Tyler. I think that TSM does look like they're on a tightrope every single time they play. It's the spring split. This is week 2. By
and that's
week
a strong
3,
roster.
Yeah,
that roster
incredible. They're incredible. Like Kabe has had a couple of great years in Europe. They went ahead and they made the trade to get Bifrost back because they thought he was good for the culture. He had played in TSM before. They brought in Dardoch, who has wanted to play for TSM before and gets along with Bjergsen and really respects Bjergsen. And I think really the most lighthearted person on this entire team is Broken Blade, and I don't know, they need to lighten up.
I can jump in there. Because I think Biofrost is going to positively contribute to the atmosphere.
I agree. I just think.
But BB is also a sweetheart, and I will jump off a bridge or something for him. He is a sweetheart and needs to be protected. He's definitely always there, pumping up the team, pumping up the players, and getting everyone kind of like in the zone. We saw the first split where he joined TSM. He was already leading the huddles and leading the chants. And Bjergsen was kind of like taking him in under his wing, saying and trying to guide him and direct him through exactly the roughness of TSM. But let's talk about that spring split for a second, because a lot of people coming in to 2020 have said exactly that. What's the point of the spring split? Why should people care as much if it's not helping them get into Worlds? But you're still forgetting that it's determining who's going to MSI, who's representing NA as a region as the best team halfway through the year at an international competition. And I think that carries a lot of weight.
Well, especially for teams like you think of TL, you think of TSM. I'm not going to comment more on the culture fit, but I think both of these teams definitely have MSI in mind because they are kind of those more super serious competitive teams. And I think both of them are looking at going to MSI hopefully. So I know they were just talking about it, but for TSM, having such a shaky start is kind of unfortunate. I'm actually not as down on them as you guys are.
I'm not down. My jury is still out.
I'm not down. I'm trashing on them.
Yeah.
My jury is still out.
The reason is actually I don't think their early games have been half bad. I also like how we see Dardoch pathing topside a lot more. And just the spread of this team and what they're trying to do, especially early, I really like. I think it's during the mid game that they kind of lose focus and they get overtaken by other teams. But in terms of their early game, in terms of what it looks like they're trying to do, giving Broken Blade more carrying power, Dardoch pathing topside, I actually think, especially in week 1, his early games were fantastic and they were aggressive, and it's something I want to see from TSM. And Kabe is kind of the perfect AD carry to fit into that thing where he's always going to be stable. Their bot lane's going to be stable, and they can try more stuff topside. So I'm not super down on TSM. Now watch them lose tonight because I hyped them up.
Okay. Well, here's the last thing, because I want this to be the last point before we move into the LEC power rankings. Darren, I kind of want to direct this at you because I don't watch the normal sports. I know that you watch the normal sports, and I want to ask a question
normal sports game yesterday
on burnout. On burnout, because we see teams like Team Liquid for 2019, they went through spring split, they won all the way through MSI to the finals. They were close. Summer split again, and then by Worlds, it seems that these players are just so tired. Similar to teams like G2 and the LEC, they had participated in every single event, almost pulling off the Grand Slam. How does this affect these players just when it gets to the end of the year and at the most important tournament of their lives?
Yeah, we had actually had a lot of conversations about a story around that sort of concept, like a team like Team Liquid or G2 who does do all this international travel because they are the best in their respective regions. I think the difference between a team like G2 and TL is they are mostly competing regionally 90% of the time until they get to Worlds. Even if you make it to MSI, you're getting a handful of games. And while that's great experience, if you need to be able to work your way through the slog of those 2 9-week splits and come out of it better. And when you talk about something like Team Liquid and G2 is going to come out of that stronger because their competition in their region is stronger and tougher. So even though they might be both burned out, G2 is going to be better equipped for that World slog because they've been through hell and back with their own region. Team Liquid doesn't really have that much more punching bag power. I mean, yes, right now they're looking medium because they have Surenfire instead of Broxah, and we'll see if the Broxah experiment works out whenever it actually does. But I think that what people should be looking at for the spring split is experimentation, have some fun, and stay refreshed and lighthearted about League of Legends. And don't, MSI is great, but again, I think if you can't even compete and come together and have some fun in your spring split, then what's it really matter?
Yeah, take care of yourselves.
I think the big thing is that MSI this year, at least for North American teams, will serve as an affirmation of identity depending on who qualifies. And what I mean by that is the fact that if Dignitas qualifies and goes to MSI, if they're the one that makes it out, they need that. They need the affirmation that they are a good team, and they want to see how they can compete internationally. I would say the exact same thing for Cloud9, right? They've made some pretty significant changes. Blabber's full-time now in the jungle, and then you also see them switching out bot lane. These are the teams that need to be told by results, not by other people, that they are very good at what they do. It is less of a thing, for me at least, than Team Liquid or TSM, which could really suffer from having to play an additional tournament in between, a time that they kind of need a break and really be refreshed heading into summer where all the marbles are on the table.
I care about MSI. I want to see Team Liquid. I want to see a team make it to the finals again. So
That's the prediction.
Listen, hold up. Originally, I was going to say I want to see Team Liquid not choke, but that would have been toxic. So I tried to alter my words there. But yes, I want to see a North American team make it to MSI finals and not choke. But let's go ahead and talk about the region that actually managed to win a MSI trophy. Let's go ahead and look at our LEC power rankings. Of course, we have G2 Esports at the top. No surprise there. Origin falling right under them. And I think that's our point of contention. Let's go ahead. We have Fnatic in third, Rogue in fourth, and Excel in fifth. Origin over Fnatic. I maybe wouldn't expect to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Origin have looked better. You have to remember, for people looking at this, that all 3 of those teams are tied. So it's just a matter of how good they've looked in their wins. I think I really like how Origin kind of try to suffocate their opponents. I think they have a lot of control in the games that they play really well. I think, obviously, the matchup against G2 was another barometer that G2 are like all the way up here and Origin is not there yet, despite the fact that they were considering this their timing window. They're like, this is the roster that we specifically want to try to challenge G2. And as we talked about in the LEC segment, G2 are only improving by swapping Perks back to mid lane and having Caps in the bot lane in route to evolving into the next level of whatever they're going to become. But I do like what Origin's doing. I do think they're a really smart team. And based on what I've seen from Fnatic, I think by the end of the season, Fnatic might still be a better team because of reasons we talked about already. But for now, I think Origin has definitely looked like the superior team.
I agree, actually. I mean, I think Origin right now look like the better team. Dusty, maybe aside, he's had a few bumps in the road.
Still a couple of hiccups.
A couple of hiccups. I mean,
he was a big reason that I think Origin fell behind against G2, despite the draft. He got picked out.
He also lacks the most experience, right? Like, he did get to play at Summit Worlds because he was on Mammoth, but give him some time.
I think the thing about LEC is that it's very I feel like there's tiers, right? There is the clump of XL, Rogue, kind of like the dark horse teams, and then you have Origin and Fnatic trying to be the finalists. That finalist here, and then you have G2 tier.
Against G2.
Yeah, G2
Top heavy.
Who's going to take on G2?
It's the G2, and it's the G2 tier, and I think the storyline of LEC display is who can stop G2. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they put Mickey X in mid lane one week. Who really?
Let's go. I want to see it. Let's go.
Power of the Weebs. Power of the Weebs.
Here's the thing. I think G2 is playing, and Jacob talked about this with Carlos's interview, is that they're trying to not just beat the other teams, they're trying to beat the game, which I think is crazy, right? Is that they're trying to change how the League of Legends is played professionally, where they want to have a positionless League of Legends, where 5 players can go anywhere they want, anywhere they can, very Dota-like in how they would play, right? So I think when it comes to G2, they're not looking at Fnatic or Origin or Rogue or Excel. They're looking to beat League of Legends and trying to do something in League of Legends that no team has ever really done before. And if they can reach that, that nirvana that they're trying to look for, trying to find like, oh, we can have 5 players play at any position at any time. Ooh, look at us. If they do that, they will win the World Championship just by getting there. So right now, I think it's the G2 tier and then the 2 finals. I think Origin, Fnatic battling for who's going to lose to them in the finals. No offense to either of those teams, but G2 is just too dang good.
Yeah.
I mean, G2's obviously a league ahead, a tier ahead, rung ahead, however you want to, whatever metaphor you want to.
Their own region.
Exactly.
Yeah, their own region.
But I want to double down and say that Origin G2 match, despite the draft, was not as far-fetched and a little bit closer than what people are giving it credit for. And I want to specifically single out Alfari, who did have to play Rumble against Soraka. I think that his job in that match was to just bully on a resourceless champion, bully the Soraka and try to get her to burn through her mana, win that lane, and hopefully that transition.
Right.
Did it work?
Buff Morel and Omicron.
Exactly.
LS is healed and all
LS got to bust through the window.
So it didn't work. But
did not
however,
work.
Alfari himself still went 3-3, had a good game overall. He still won his lane, and he had a CS advantage over Wonder. And I think Alfari is a really big, calling him out. He's a really big bonus for that team. He's 8-3-17 across 4 games and 4 champions.
Here's my question with that, though. Because Alfari is so experienced on Rumble, wouldn't he be able to pose some sort of objection to drafting Rumble against a Raka when you know that Raka can kick some serious Rumble booty? And this may be a question maybe for Emily or Tyler as well.
Well, I mean, I don't know. So I don't know how they were approaching the matchup or how they thought about it. I never know what goes on in draft. I do think it's typically more of a collaborative effort than people think.
We can only speculate wildly.
Yeah. In terms of G2, though, I actually think this is like the hot take time for me. I think that the team that showed more holes in G2's game were actually Mad Lions, despite the fact that they were completely outpaced in the mid game, right? Like just absolutely, completely outpaced. I think their early game showed some of the holes that have always been in G2's early game. So if you can find a team that's super powerful, that can take advantage of G2 in the early game, maybe that's something that other European teams want to look at and be like, we want to follow this blueprint.
I mean, there is a phrase, I'm going to butcher, but there's a phrase along the lines of, I don't fear the guy who has practiced a sword cut 10,000 times. It's like you put a sword in a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Look, the master is not going to know what to do against that because he's never faced someone who hasn't practiced with the sword. Mad Lions probably fits that metaphor a little bit where, hey, we don't know what they're going to do. They're all young and inexperienced, so they're going to try some crazy stuff.
Well, I think Mad Lions knew, like specifically like Shadow's pathing in that game, I think they knew what they really wanted to do early, and I think we've seen people exploit G2's early holes before. Fnatic did, and in their final series, and it was really, really close. So that is the key to beating G2 for me. Now, G2 is also trying to elevate their own game, as we talked about, right? But I think if people do want to look at G2's early game, they might also want to look at what Mad Lions did in that.
I heard a lot of team executives who were like very much like, if we can't beat them, then just go super cheap rosters. And I heard that from a lot of people that built these rookie rosters.
Make good content. That's what I believe.
Misfits, Vitality, Mad Lions, all the people investing in young talent. And holy crap, Mad Lions is making it work.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Mad Lions right now, though, because they're not shown on our power rankings chart here, but they are listed as number 6. And this is a team of all rookies and humanoids. And exactly as you said, they are finding the wins. They are making it work, and they are looking pretty impressive.
That's what the rookie
as this band of
Well, they're also looking kind of unimpressive at times.
But still, I'm
probably like the biggest Mad Lions fan here, or like not fan, but like I really have liked what they've been doing. So I think Mad Lions are a really fun team to watch because of that. You just do have to expect that they will make more than a few mistakes.
Yeah, so Emily, I'm going to cut you off because Tyler just gave us like the worst stank face as soon as we said that Mad Lions were interesting to watch. Does that closer to what you believe in?
No, I like Mad Lions. I think Mad Lions is a good team, but I think it's like we're comparing it's like comparing a souffle to dog food, right? And I think
Okay, hold on. At least say like that fancy dog.
No, I think this thing of like, oh, Mad Lions are so good. It's like they were supposed to be. I think if we were all quizzed during the kickoff show a few weeks ago, and it's like, oh, which rookie team, which surprise team can maybe make some noise? We're all like, oh yeah, it's Mad Lions, Carzy, insanely good young player. Shadow surprised us. Froskurinn warned us about Shadow. It's like, so I don't think it's a surprise that Mad Lions are doing well. I think they're actually playing to what we expected. They're very talented, very young, and they're making a lot of mistakes. So I think they're very much on that Rogue timeline, right? Where Rogue kind of came in with Inspired, Finn, Larson. When they came in, they finished 5th or 6th, and then upset a team in the quarterfinals and Splice, and then lost in semifinals. I think that's what we're going to look at with Mad Lions. I can definitely see them upsetting, an Excel or Rogue, possibly, beating, their younger selves in Rogue. But I think that Mad Lions is where they need to be right now. I think they deserve praise, but I don't think it's a shock. I think this is the team where they should be.
I think that in the end, it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of burnout, peaking at the right time. They have a whole split to really work this and get this right.
They have a whole year.
And they're doing it. And they're doing it in the stronger of the two regions. I think that the practice that they're going to get, a Mad Lions in the middle of the LEC, will probably be able to contend with most, 3 through
most LCS teams.
3 through 10 LCS.
Potentially on a tangent then, what's more surprising to you guys? The fact that Mad Lions is doing well, or the fact that Schalke kind of did not?
Schalke. I'm more surprised that Schalke is on the brand. Yeah, I think Mad Lions is where they are a wildly inconsistent young team, showed a lot of promise. Did that. I mean, I really like Darren's metaphor of when you give a newcomer a sword, you have no clue what they're going to do. Yeah.
It was great. No, I loved it.
I maintain that they knew exactly what they wanted to do.
They are not the samurai team.
It was just the rest of the game.
You give them a sword, they're supposed to cut things, but you don't know which way they're going to cut.
Too bad they had to play the samurai team in their first game.
All right. Well, what?
To answer that question, though, I actually am not surprised by either. I think that Schalke was going to be bottom of the pack from everything we talked about on the kickoff show and from everything, and again, Scrimbucks here.
Tyler's making a huge face at you right now.
Not that bad. Not 0-4 bad.
Maybe not SK Gaming levels bad.
Not Vitality
bad. To be fair, Vitality is missing Milica. They are playing with Seiken because of visa issues as well.
Yeah,
but I will say I'm not necessarily surprised that Schalke is, because they've had a rough schedule too. That Schalke is where they are, and I'm also not that surprised, although albeit impressed that Mad Lions is doing as well as they are.
All right, well, I do want to wrap up the LEC power rankings, but I will do so with one more question from Twitch chat. This is actually kind of like a nice bridge. This is from Rebby again. Where would Cloud9 place in the LEC right now?
Third.
Yeah,
Third.
I think they'd be weirdly in that clump of we're looking at Origin, we're looking at Fnatic, we're looking at Rogue. I think it'd be really interesting to see them go up against a Fnatic, an Origin, especially Origin actually, just to see both of their early games go up against each other.
I think Origin and C9 are very comparable. I think those are the two teams I say, I think in the power rankings I was asked how do you rank these teams out of 10? I both gave those two teams the same score. I think they'd be second or third. I think Cloud9's really good, and they have a lot of good players. I know, and it's a testament to C9's, training that 3 of the players are homegrown, which is amazing. That we're talking about
2 of them from Scouting Grounds.
Yeah, on the same Scouting Grounds team. Team Ocean, Vulcan, Blabber, and Licorice. 3 young NA prospects that C9 have brought along, and they're actually good. It's almost like, actually investing in NA talent sometimes breeds results instead of, going over to Korea or Europe and, going to the bargain bin and it's a slightly used import player here. I'm going to bring them back. Maybe invest in NA talent.
Yeah,
I think the big thing about where C9 would land, though, is I think it could be anywhere from 2 to 5. right?
Fair.
So it's like
That's
in a
very
tier.
fair. That's almost something that I would agree with a little bit more, because the only thing that I'm thinking of right now is the flashbacks to the last Rift Rivals that we had. And
Ooh,
all
that was
of
a really
NA
rough one.
All
yeah.
of NA just kept dropping like flies.
In
and I was
fairness,
very
wasn't all of
frustrated.
C9 like dying from
Yeah, they
some
were
sort
All
of
of
mystery
Cloud9 was
illness?
sick. 100 Thieves. Was this the time where they were trying out Levi?
Yeah,
Was that the last one?
I believe.
I don't remember. You know what? Let's put
After
on
the
that
really
behind us.
sad.
That's not
Yeah,
important
it was
enough.
not
That's
good.
not important enough. Let's instead move our direction to the exciting things that are happening tonight. Monday Night League, we have 2 more matches left. We're going to see FlyQuest take on the still undefeated Dignitas, as well as
For now.
what used to be, you shush now, as well as the old rivalry match between CLG
The El
and
Clasico.
TSM.
The not so El
Clasico, that's
Clasico.
not so
The
That's not,
Listen, we only have a short amount of time before these games start, and I want to talk about them. So let's go straight into this FlyQuest Dignitas matchup. FlyQuest, I'm still feeling a little bit of hype behind them, even with that stumble against Team Liquid. Dignitas, I'm incredibly excited for. Emily, please start us off.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I want to know from FlyQuest is, are they going to do a Team Liquid, right? Because we saw Team Liquid not really know what to do with Dignitas' Herald swap at 8 minutes. They learned immediately by the next game. So either they were practicing it and just didn't expect it when Dig did it, or, you know, they learned that quickly. What I want to see is now then the team they applied that to was FlyQuest, right? And their swap top was really, really rewarding for them. So now I want to see, is FlyQuest going to be able to apply that to this Dignitas match? And obviously, Dignitas already knows what to do. So for me, going into this game, I know everyone yells at me for over-focusing on the early game because I always track jungle pathing. But I really, really want to see how both of these teams handle that swap for Herald, and whether we're going to be fighting over Herald, maybe unnecessarily, maybe necessarily, and how they're going to be trading objectives around that.
Darren.
I think the key to FlyQuest beating Dignitas tonight is they focus on the weakest link on Dignitas right now, which is Grig. And I think that you do exactly what G2 did against Origin, where they ban out the jungler and force them onto something, and they find a way to make Santorin shine. Either you visit top lane a lot and help get Viper ahead, or you go to the bot lane and you help get Ignar and Wild Turtle just pushing like crazy. I think that strategy, if I want to see that, I want to see if that works, and I want to see if, you know, Grig really is that supposedly weak link, because Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid have put bans toward Grig in these past 2 weeks, and he has underperformed statistically when he is targeted. So
I'll give Grig that little bit of wiggle room, though. Jacob?
So here's my thought about this. I think that Dignitas is going to win this evening. However, I think by the time the season wraps up, that FlyQuest will be the better team. I think FlyQuest has a lot of room to grow. I'm a big fan of Power of Evil and Ignar and their potential. Obviously, they've played very well together in the past. But I think that overall, right now, as things stand, Dignitas has a ton of momentum that I think will roll into tonight. But if we have this conversation come playoff time in the summer split, I think it will be a very different conversation. But my confidence is definitely in Dignitas.
Tyler, let's get a point from you, and then I want to ask about matchups.
Yeah, well, talking about matches, my whole thing is Johnson and Aframu. I mean, I have to do Johnson.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it, buddy.
Johnson and
Let it all
Aframu
out.
versus Wild Turtle and Ignar, and I think Ignar and Wild Turtle can be very aggressive. I think we've seen Johnson pass the test of being double lift. He passed the test of winning his first game, going 2-0 in his first weekend. Primetime game, all the hype is around him. He's hearing those tweets being, oh man, Johnson, you're so great. You're so great.
From you.
Yeah, from you.
Yeah, I mean, some of them.
Leader of the Johnson fan club.
Some of them,
He's
a little
doing
bit.
really well.
But no, Johnson, he's really good. I like the bowl cut. Anyway,
Why is it? Okay.
Anyway.
Keep talking, or I'm going to steal
Nothing
it
to
from
do
you.
with this mechanical building.
No, his mechanical ability is really good. But I want to see if he can take the pressure of getting all this attention, all this hype, and in this game on a primetime slot versus FlyQuest, can he beat a team with a very aggressive bot lane? I want to see if he can beat Ignar, beat Wild Turtle. If he can, it's another test pass and the road to MVP stardom right in his future.
So piggybacking off of that, my matchup, since obviously Ovly was already going to ask, is actually Aframu versus Ignar. Because if we think of Ignar, we think of him as this incredible roaming support, and when he's unlocked, he just unleashes havoc on the map, right? He's probably going to roam up to mid. If they do opt for that lane swap, I want to see when they do it and where Ignar is in that. And then talking to Afro, he said, like, you know, Ignar is the player that I need to make sure in lane with Johnson, I need to lock him down.
I want to
Ban
see
out that
Ignar on
Blitzcrank.
Leona.
No.
No ban out the Blitzcrank? You wouldn't respect the
Oh,
Blitz?
yeah. Oh, you said ban out the blitz. I said pick up the blitz against Ignar. I thought
No, you
that's
gotta
what you
ban
said.
that out.
Yeah, sorry, my hearing is terrible.
You could cry. I think Liquid was the one who respected the Blitz and banned it in their game. But something that I want to talk about is the top lane matchup between Huni and Viper. Viper, a player that you have to respect the Riven ban. I think Liquid was in the makeup room with me when they saw the game, the Riven pick go through, and they're like, well,
Game over.
that's how you lose games. So now I'm looking at Viper, who has this very strong presence in the top lane, and then Huni, who we've seen mixed performances of in the past, but this split he's been pretty solid.
He better make good on that $1.1 million.
Oh, he better be worth that.
My Huni hot take is that there is no good or bad Huni, there's just Huni.
Oh,
and
gosh.
and it's always like whatever the talent is around him. No, but
That sounds like Soaz.
he plays the exact same way. Like he's always going to be aggressive. If he sees a skirmish bot, even if they don't call for it, he might be TPing bot anyway to try to help.
Going in.
So you know, I think Huni, again, we talked about this when we talked about Dig, but he looks really good on this team because this is a really good surrounding cast for him to have. And I think when you think of how Huni likes to play, I think you are thinking of, is he leaving lane? You know, is he leaving lane? Is Viper getting advantages off of that? Or how is the actual laning champion matchup going?
My counter to that is that the one time Huni has looked different was on T1 when Huni outwardly said, yeah, I'm scared of Coma. I'm really scared of him. I'm scared of him. Like, I don't want, like, Coma is a bad man. I don't want to mess with Coma.
Oh, no.
So,
I don't think Card instills the same
that's the
fear,
question.
but-
Can the Dignitas
Rip
head coaches, you know, pull in Huni? I have actually a story from 2016. I embedded with Immortals when Huni was, you know, the star. He was the rookie from LEC.
Huni
Good roster.
You know, Immortals was supposed to go to Worlds. I was following them on the World step, and I was there in a practice room in their team house, and they really wanted Huni to play Shen. They're like, Huni, please play Shen. We will win if you play Shen. And he looks at the coaches and says, I'm playing Jace.
He said Huni toss the other day in some of the interviews you all did with him, and it's like the most appropriate thing ever. Literally, Michael Prindenville, the CEO of Dignitas, said to me, there was one player I wanted to build my team around, and that was Huni.
So the question is, can the Dignitas coaches, they're not going to be Coma, they're not Coma level, they're not
I think
gonna,
Card's too nice to be with
but
that way.
can they wrangle him in a bit? Just a little bit. All you need is a wrangle, because you want Huni to be Huni, right? You want that the charisma, you want the wild TP sometimes, but you want to wrangle him in. Can they do that? Do you believe in the Dignitas coaching staff?
No.
Well,
That's a good question.
Not yet.
We're going to find out, but I think that's enough for this game here. We need to move on to the last game of the day, TSM versus CLG.
El Trashico.
I like that.
All right, I mean, I can't really debate against that at this point in time because this used to be such a hyped matchup. It was like, oh my gosh, it's Reggie versus Hotshot again, the two owners, and now with everyone taking a step back and the teams taking a step back from that winning podium, what is this match now but a team with one win versus a team with no wins?
I mean, that kind of is what this matchup is.
Okay, well, there's
but
a
I'll
team
say,
that used to have
I'll say
Double Lift
as someone who went to bat for TSM earlier, I'll go to bat for them again. I think they're better than what their record is shown, and I think this game is really important in terms of proving that, right? Like they need to come in and they need to have a statement victory over a CLG team that, again, I really loved interviewing these guys prior to the LCS. They seem to have great coordination. They seem to be having a ton of fun with each other. Their boot camp, they were like, it went really well. It was great. We had so much fun together. We get along really well as a team, and they've just looked really, really flat coming into LCS. So this is a matchup that TSM is expected to win, and I think for themselves, they kind of need to win.
Yeah, I agree with that last sentence. They need to win this. The event is they don't, and they
You
lose.
just said they should relax and not put some
They're on a tightrope.
earlier.
TSM is on a tightrope, and Jacob's there with a stick. I'm
on the other end, like just pulling the rope as tight as I possibly can. Now I do agree that they need to relax, but like this one does matter. Just because like I can say that they need to relax as much as they want, they're not going to.
They're not going to.
And they need to win this. I remember before I worked here at ESPN, I was sitting in the Madison Square Garden press room explaining to ESPN producers what TSM CLG meant, and I compared it to the Red Sox and the Yankees. To now compare it, or to it to be the trash tier that it is in some of the bottom teams in this league, it's a really sad spot to be in. But I do think that TSM is the better team, but if they lose tonight, I'm very concerned about what the team
It does say
looks like.
more if CLG can beat TSM than if TSM can beat CLG.
Yeah,
There's getting question marks all around, Tyler.
It's a match neither team can lose. And we can talk about how it's early in the season and no championship points, so spring season doesn't really matter. But this is a match neither team can lose. Either TSM goes 1-3 with a pretty easy schedule. They shouldn't have lost to Immortals. CLG looks lifeless. They should be a 3-1, 4-0 team. And then you look at CLG. If they lose tonight, they're 0-4. Yeah. They are, they're really behind the pack when they really need to be in that playoff race. They don't want to be left behind. So it's a match that neither team can lose. And we can talk about the El Trashco. I made jokes about it. Both teams, and that's the thing. Tonight, one team will be in the trash. Either CLG or TSM is going to be reamed on Reddit. Everyone's going to make fun of them.
And there was a world where they could have both been in the trash. Let's not forget, Evil Geniuses came pretty damn close to beating Team Solomon.
Yeah.
Yep. This could be a much more interesting matchup if Evil Geniuses.
We're sitting 0-3 right now.
Absolutely crazy, yeah, for this fabled matchup for TSM versus CLG to both be in potentially 0-3 when facing each other. That would have been insanely sad.
Well, both teams might be 1-3
as like
at
an
the
OG
end.
LCS fan watching, it's like, oh, this isn't the fun match to watch anymore. But I do want to jump into predictions for today. So everyone made predictions. I believe we do have a prediction graphic that we can throw up in a second. But who would like to go?
I was going to say, I think we all agreed.
Except for one.
Except for one person.
There's one person
So I'll start anyway. I
contradicting
picked
everyone.
Dig over FlyQuest. And I
Dig
picked
over
TSM,
FlyQuest.
TSM over CLG.
TSM over CLG, Dig over FlyQuest, TSM over CLG.
Wow, Emily and I, we agree per usual in most instances. Dig over FlyQuest and TSM over CLG. Albeit the caveat that I said earlier, I do think FlyQuest will be the better team at the end of the season, but I think as of right now they are
Just
not.
hedge those bets some more.
I have Johnson beating FlyQuest. And
Johnson is literally the entirety of Dignitas.
Okay. So Jacob's making some bold predictions. I'll say this right now. Johnson will finish top 3 MVP voting. Come back. Well, we have Riff Rewinds weekly.
Over Froskurinn on his
We're
team.
gonna hold you.
Yeah.
To that.
Oh no, hold it. Play it back.
What is okay? You were the king, sir, my friend, at betting something like hair dye or tattoos. What are you betting
I
on
dyed
this take?
your hair.
Yeah,
Remember
what?
this
What take? What are you betting on this take?
What's that? Okay, if Johnson's not top 3 MVP, you can dye my hair whatever color Ovely wants on Riff Rewind. How about that?
Dye it yellow.
Dye it yellow. We're not
Dignitas yellow.
Not
Dignitas
dyeing
yellow.
it yellow again.
That was a bad choice. That was a bad choice.
All right, there you go. The first bet on Rift Rewind. If Johnson does not make top 3 in the MVP voting, I will be. Can I cut your hair too?
No.
Come on, cut and dye. Get the
There are limits.
I already made a bet that if
Okay, is he
What if
shaving
she
his
gives
head
you
too?
a bowl cut like Johnson?
Ooh.
Oh!
We're gonna
We straighten it and then we
straighten
bowl
it.
cut
You
it.
do have
That'll
similar
be good.
glasses.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
No. We'll make a caveat. If Dig does not make top 4, if Dig does not make top 4,
That's the
you
bowl
can
cut.
bowl cut.
But if he doesn't make top 3, you have to dye it. She has to
Sounds
dye
good. Sounds good. Okay. Darren.
My contrarian pick is FlyQuest over Dignitas. I think
it. Not inconceivable.
it's not inconceivable, and I really do think that if they hard focus on Greg, pull him out of the equation, it becomes a 4-on-5, and all you got to do is have Ignar and Double Lift win that bot lane.
Emily's about to go.
Oh no,
Let's
I
do
was
it.
just
She's
gonna
gonna go
say.
in on
I
you.
was gonna ask
To be
what
clear,
is.
you're TSM over CLG. Right?
TSM over CLG.
I was gonna say what would be more surprising if FlyQuest beat Dignitas or if CLG beat TSM.
CLG.
If CLG beat TSM,
CLG.
it would be way more surprising.
CLG have no pull.
And
That's
then we
like
go and we watch the subreddit for TSM, and we just look for all the calls for roster.
The worst subreddits. Sorry, folks. The worst subreddits.
You
of all
really wanna say
teams,
this?
TSM and
Doug.
our team solo mid and our CLG are pretty insufferable when
You're
their team
just
loses.
bringing the hate.
So regardless of the result tonight, there will be very many fun Reddit takes.
Yeah, I believe we have Twitter polls that we can look at in a second to see who Twitter believes is going to win. My predictions as well, I had Dignitas beating FlyQuest and TSM beating CLG. I mean, pretty much the same. Still, Darren, FlyQuest.
I like it.
What are you doing there, buddy?
Across the board the same.
I love it.
What are you doing there? See, look, that's your purple hair that we're going back to.
Oh yeah.
And Twitter we have here as well.
Twitter is in agreement
Voting,
with
yeah.
the rest of us.
Why does it look
Except
like
Support.
Dignitas' logo looks like Pikachu?
All right, guys.
I'm
Only-
mean Pikachu.
Only a few minutes before Monday Night League starts and we start to see these games. Final thoughts, Emily, starting with you.
I actually really am looking forward to Dignitas versus FlyQuest. I think a lot of times I talk about it with players all the time in interviews, and I always ask why even players coming from outside of NA to North America suddenly lose that kind of aggression that they have, like North America, why do we play so slow? And I look at teams like Dig, like FlyQuest, I mean, we mentioned C9 previously, that are really focusing on having stronger early games, and I like that a lot.
Quickly for you, Jacob.
Yeah, very quickly for me, I think this is the win that TSM needs to get back on track. They need to dominate this game, and then they need to continue throughout the rest of the season and the split. Again, I will contradict myself a little bit. I do think they should take it looser, but not so loose that they're losing to teams like CLG.
Covering all of your bases, Jacob, I like
Not
it.
that they're losing to CLG. That's
So
too
when you
loose.
can go back and rewind, be like, but they did say that.
Yeah, no. Back
Contradict myself here.
But yeah, Tyler, really fast for you.
Johnson, please. Please, Johnson. Please.
You're regretting your
Here's
match.
weighing on you, buddy.
Johnson, please. That's all I have to say. Please.
I'm glad
Do
you
you
know
think
his
he's
name.
watching?
I'm glad
All
you know
right.
his name.
Of course he's
I
watching.
doubt he's about to play.
My final thought would be that if TSM does end up losing to CLG, they I know we say it's early, it's spring split, they should be a little worried. If CLG does win against TSM, they shouldn't get too excited.
Are we
They have a
talking
long road ahead of them.
Speaka level worried, or are we talking like, what would you change?
I'm talking like hashtag bench Bjergsen.
Okay, we're going to leave that there. And that's how we're going to end the show. For everyone, thank you all so much for watching.
Hashtag
very
bench
important takes, very important matches happening today for Monday Night League. But even the most important thing, we just finished our first episode of Rift Rewind. So thank you so much. Follow all of our beautiful analysts on Twitter and follow us on Twitter at ESPN Esports. And you know what? We'll see you in the Monday Night League Twitch chat.
Please, Johnson.
Oh my God. Oh, I wanted to throw the pen.
Oh, sorry.
No.